Chapter 994. Yu Lily followed Yi Chanshan to learn the precautions for her new position and some routine operations. They spent the whole morning learning. After lunch, Yu Lily and Yi Chanshan were about to go back to the company when they received a phone call. She was in the capital. Yu Lily didn't need to pick up the phone, but she had already guessed who it was. It was none other than the Shin family. Unfortunately, Yu Lily didn't have a good impression of the Shin family at all. Because of Shin Manting, Shin Luo, and also because of Shin Longyue's disdain and shock after hearing her identity. The only person who left a good impression on her was the old lady of the Shin family. Fortunately, it was all good news. Yu Lily couldn't help but feel a lot more relaxed. But the phone kept calling, and Yu Lily set the phone to silent mode. When she returned to the company, Yu Lily picked up the phone and found that there were more than a dozen missed calls and several text messages. She picked up the phone and clicked on the text messages. There were several in a row. I came to Kingstown to find you. Where are you? I am the old lady of the Shin family. You saved me. Thank you very much for that day. Miss, answer the phone. Just as Yu Lily finished reading these text messages, another phone call came in. Yu Lily picked up the phone this time, and there was an old voice coming from the other side. Hello, is that you, miss? It's me. Yu Lily felt a little strange. Listening to the voice on the other side, that tone didn't seem to be talking to an outsider. When old Mrs. Shin heard Yu Lily's answer, she was a little relieved and happy. She said, You finally answered the phone. Where are you? I'll go to play with you, okay? Well, Grandma, why are you in Kingstown again? Didn't you go back to the capital? Did you come all the way here to find your grandson? No, I'm here to look for you. What's so fun about looking for grandchildren? They're not filial at all. You're the best. Old Madam Shin's aged voice sounded. She sighed. If an old woman like me were to be seen by my grandchildren on the streets, they would definitely ignore me. But you saved me. I can tell that you are my fated person. To be honest, there is an evil aura in my life. When I looked at your physiognomy and palmistry, I realized that you and I complement each other. Miss, you can help me resolve that evil aura. Also, I can help you solve some problems that you can't solve. Yu Lily was a little mystified. Such a thing was really amazing. Yu Lily believed some of it but not all of it. Hearing the old lady's words, Yu Lily suddenly felt that something was wrong. Could this old woman be a swindler? However, since she was Shin Manting's grandmother, it shouldn't be possible. When old Mrs. Shin heard that Yu Lily was silent, she asked, Where are you? I'm working. I'm working in the company. I see. I'm alone at the station now. I don't know how to get there. Can you tell me the address? Well? Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed and said, Why don't you call someone to pick you up? Call Shin Manting or Shin Jilya. Chapter 995. Let O Ming pick her up? When Yu Lily heard this, she immediately thought of the relationship between her and O Ming. Although Shin Manting and O Ming were not married yet, both parents should have met each other. O Ming was also her future grandson-in-law. After Yu Lily asked her for the address, she called O Ming. O Ming was in a meeting, and everyone in the meeting room was a little anxious because the meal time was delayed. However, without O Ming's permission, no one could leave. Therefore, it dragged on like this, and no one was able to suggest that they should leave first. What everyone didn't expect was that O Ming, who seemed to be in a bad mood just now, immediately stopped talking after seeing a phone call. Everyone stared at O Ming and no one dared to speak. O Ming picked up the phone as if there was no one else around and waited for the other side to speak first. O Ming? Yes. Yu Lily thought about her words and said, Shin Manting's grandmother is in the station. Now she is waiting for someone to pick her up. You go pick her up. I have to go to work and have no time to go. Shin Manting's grandmother? O Ming felt a little surprised. How do you know? Since it was Shin Manting's grandmother, why did she come to Yu Lily? She called me. O Ming felt even more strange. The old lady of the Shin family had a very strange temper. She treated many people with an aloof look, and her mouth was full of the book of changes. She was a liar. Every time she saw him, she would praise him, unspeakably noble, unspeakably noble. However, apart from this sentence, there was nothing else. Now she came to Kingstown to find Yu Lily instead of Shin Manting or Shin Jilya? What? O Ming asked subconsciously. Such a thing was too strange. Yu Lily felt a little helpless. How would I know? Anyway, she asked you to pick her up. I have already told her. It is your business whether you pick her up or not. After that, Yu Lily hung up the phone directly. O Ming listened to the busy tone coming from the phone and looked up. The whole meeting room was staring at him. O Ming's face was still calm and he said calmly, Where were we? Old Mrs. Shin knew that Ming would never come to pick her up. Sitting on a bench at the bus stop, old Mrs. Shin took out her cell phone and called Yu Lily again. Yu watched her from the side. She felt that when the old lady faced others, she was completely different from when she faced her. Old Mrs. Han was aloof and virtuous toward strangers and treated her own family with respect. She had a proud attitude toward many people, but when it came to Yu, her face was full of disgust. She didn't even try to hide her unruly attitude. Could it really be because of the so-called confirmation of fate? Just as she was deep in thought, she felt a gentle pat on her shoulder. Yu was shocked and turned her head to look. His gaze collided with a pair of chilly and aloof eyes that were like the cool breeze and clear moon in a midsummer night. Just a glance was enough to make one forget to leave. When she saw who he was, she turned pale with fright. She immediately turned her head around and pretended not to know him. "That's right," Li Jinan said. Chapter 996. Yu almost blurted out the words, which made her feel even more wonderful. Li Jinan heard the old lady's straightforward praise, grinned, and nodded politely. "Hello." Yu stood up and said to the old lady, "Grandma, let me take you there. It's faster." Old Mrs. Shun was a little unhappy when she heard this. She turned her head and glared at Yu saying, "What? Are you impatient? Well, a few days ago you wanted to be filial to me. Now you're like this. You're so hypocritical." Yu was used to the old lady's tone, but today she said it in front of Li Jinan, which made Yu feel more embarrassed than ever. How could she? Yu's face was burning and she explained, "No, Grandma, you misunderstood me. I think you just want to get rid of me quickly and then do your own things, right? I knew that you were already holding a grudge when I asked you to stay at home for one more day yesterday." Old Mrs. Shin's tone was a little bitter. When she spoke, she stared at Yu with some resentment. "No, who is this?" Old Mrs. Shin interrupted Yu and pointed to Li Jinan. "Hello, my name is Li Jinan." Li Jinan smiled and looked at the old lady. "What's your relationship?" Old Mrs. Shin's eyes were full of shrewdness. She looked at Li Jinan and then at Yu and snorted. Yu felt a little nervous. Inexplicably, Yu was a little afraid of this old lady. Although she liked to spout nonsense most of the time, people had no choice but to believe what she said. Moreover, she often said that she could tell something from a person's face. At this moment, Yu's heart couldn't help but beat faster. Will she find out that I and Li Jinan? It's over, it's a mess. Yu hurriedly said, "Grandma, he is my boss, my boss. So that's how it is. I said that you can't hook such a good guy with such a bad life." As she said that, she looked at Li Jinan with a smile and said, "Brother Li, right? Oh, you look really good. Can I see your hand?" Li Jinan nodded. Li Jinan was baffled. He had never encountered such a situation before. Seeing old Mrs. Shen's radiant smile, Li Jinan glanced at Yu with a smile and extended his left hand. Old Mrs. Shen's eyes lit up when she saw his hand. Holding it with both hands, he looked at it carefully and said, "What a good broken palm. If you were born in ancient times, you would be either an emperor or a prince. You would be rich and powerful all your life. It's a pity that it was broken at the peak of your life. Did you give up on a particularly good future?" Li Jinan withdrew his hand, feeling a little creeped out by the old lady's words. He used to be a major in the military but later retired. He was almost beaten to death by Li Xiao. But how did this old lady know? How mysterious. Li Jinan cleared his throat and asked, Grandma, how did you know?" I am a half-immortal, there is nothing that I do not know." Old Mrs. Shun was a little proud. Suddenly she saw a figure in the distance. Old Mrs. Shun was a little excited and shouted, "Miss, I'm here." Yu Lily saw old Mrs. Shun with Yu and Li Jinan by her side. She was shocked but she still walked over. Chapter 997. Old Mrs. Shun was a little happy to see Yu Lily. She took her hand and turned to look at Li Jinan. "What do you think of this young man?" While talking, she leaned over to Yu Lily and said, "This young man is good. He is much better than Ming." Yu Lily turned her head and looked at old Mrs. Shen strangely. Does this old lady want to introduce me to a boyfriend? She even compared Ming with Li Jinan? Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed. Why is this old lady so friendly? As far as I know, the Shen family and the Li family should have no relationship. Old Mrs. Shen made Yu Lily feel a little embarrassed on the spot. She smiled, looked at Li Jinan and said, "Third Master Li, why are you here?" "I was passing by and happened to see Miss Yi, so I came to say hello." "Do you know this old lady?" "Of course I know her." Before Yu Lily could speak, the old lady spoke first and said, "This girl is my destined person. She saved my life." Yu Lily was even more embarrassed. Looking at her arm being held by old Mrs. Shun, she said, "Why did you come here by yourself? I'd better call your grandson or granddaughter. I didn't save their numbers. You can call them." Yu Lily had the habit of cleaning up records. Sometimes when she was bored, she would clear the records. Therefore, she didn't save their numbers at all. Otherwise, Yu Lily wouldn't have come alone because she was worried about the old lady. Yu saw the intimate look of old Mrs. Shun holding Yu Lily's arm and felt a little strange. It turned out that old Mrs. Shun, who had always been mean in front of her, had such a side. It seemed that old Mrs. Shun wanted to stick to this girl. Old Mrs. Shun wouldn't treat anyone like this. At the same time, Yu also felt a little uncomfortable. She said hello to Yu Lily and said, "Hello, we meet again." Yu Lily naturally recognized that this was Yi Chanshan's sister. She nodded with a smile and said, "You and this old lady? I don't know her. I'm just passing by." Old Mrs. Shun pushed her gently, then reached out to pull the luggage and said, "Let's go." "Where are you going?" Yu Lily looked at the old lady and felt a little distressed. "I don't know where your grandson is." But soon she thought of something and sent a message to Ming, "Give me Shin Manting's number." Ming had just finished a meeting and sat alone in the conference room. After looking at it, he called Yu Lily. Yu Lily quickly picked up. Ming was inexplicably relieved and asked, Shin Manting is Shun. Grandma is at the station. You can ask her to pick you up." No, don't let them come over." Old Mrs. Shun snatched the phone from Yu Lily's hand and hung up. She said pitifully, "They abuse the elderly. I have no choice but to come to you. Young lady, I beg you. Don't call them over, okay?" Yu Lily's eyes widened. You and Wang. You and you Mrs. Yu Lily thought. You and Lee. Mrs. Yu Mrs. with you. Chapter 998. Yu's words were intended to help Yu Lily and the old lady out of the situation. Yu Lily suddenly remembered what their relationship was. It seemed that Shin Luo and was the grandson of old Mrs. Shun, and Yu was his wife. After sorting out their relationship, Yu Lily felt that their family was really chaotic. Yu Lily didn't want to get involved in this mess, so she nodded in response to Yu's words. However, old Mrs. Shun's skin was much thicker than Yu Lily had imagined. Old Mrs. Shun stared at her and said, "What do you mean? The fate between me and Lily is not something that an ordinary person like you can see. Don't try to sow discord between us. The little girl likes me very much. How can she feel troubled? Right, girl?" There was a very obvious expectation on old Mrs. Shun's face. A pair of slightly turbid eyes seemed to shine as she looked at Yu Lily. Yu Lily immediately felt that she was being relied on. Suddenly she felt a headache coming on. She was a little embarrassed and helpless. She looked at the old woman who was full of anticipation and said, "Grandma, you'd better go with your granddaughter-in-law. I'm still at work. I thought you were here alone. If I had known that Miss Yi was here, I wouldn't have come. I'm a little busy over there. It's okay. You take me to your company. You do your work. I won't make any trouble." Old Mrs. Shun looked at Yu Lily with an expression that said, "I'm the most honest and obedient." She nodded her head vigorously to show that she was being honest. Yu saw that Yu Lily didn't want to take the old lady with her, so she was also embarrassed. She pulled old Mrs. Shun and said, "Grandma, I'll take you to my place first. After this lady gets off work, I'll take you to see her. Is that okay?" Yu Lily took advantage of the situation and said, "Yes, I'm very busy. If I don't do my work well, I will be fired." As she said that, she looked distressed and full of helplessness. When old Mrs. Shun saw Yu Lily's expression, she also realized that she seemed to be a little too capricious. After thinking for a while, she said, "Well, you do your work first. Don't leave me behind, okay?" Leave? For an old man to say such a thing to her, it was as if Yu Lily had done something heinous. At the same time, he was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have come. Now this old lady clearly wanted to rely on him. What should I do? Yu looked at Yu Lily and said, "In that case, can you accompany my grandmother to find a hotel? Please." Facing Yu's gaze and the old lady's, Yu Lily couldn't help but nod her head. Li Jinan looked at his watch and said, "My time is almost up. You go find a hotel first. I'll go first." "Alright, go ahead." Old Mrs. Shun looked at Li Jinan with a smile. She then looked at Yu and asked, "Do you have his number?" Yu felt a little guilty. Did the old madam notice something? She hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. "Yes. That's good. Young man, go ahead." Li Jinan nodded politely and turned to leave. Old Mrs. Shun turned around, took out her mobile phone and said, "Give me the phone number of that young man." You Lily. Chapter 999. Yu was embarrassed. Under Yu Lily's strange gaze, her face was a little hot. What does the old lady want to do? Is it really because he is handsome and then, can't help it? Does she want to flirt with a man? But Li Jinan is less than 30 years old, and he is almost the same age as Shen Luo An. Is this not good? However, the other party is Shen Luo An's most respected grandmother. Yi Yu did not dare to question it and directly saved the number for her. Then Yu Lily helped Yi Yu and the old lady find a hotel and helped the old lady move things in. Just before Yu Lily left, old Mrs. Shun looked at Yu Lily with a pair of pitiful eyes and said, "You must come, don't leave me." Yu Lily vaguely answered, did not say that she would come, did not say that she would not come. Back at the company, when Yu Lily met with Yi Chanshan, she couldn't help complaining. Yu Lily told him all the helplessness she had felt, starting from when she had saved the old lady. Yi Chanshan was stunned and said, "What a big weirdo. Isn't it?" Yu Lily sighed helplessly. "Anyway, I don't dare to go to her. I feel that I will be blamed. It is not easy to be a good person these days. Be smart, don't stir up so much trouble. Oh, by the way, the girl who was with Li Laosen last time, is she your sister?" "Yes, what's wrong? I just thought I saw her. She was with the old lady." "The old lady is Shen Luo An's grandmother. Yi Yu was with her just now. When we went to find the hotel, she also went with them." Yi Chanshan was even more shocked and said, "Really, it turned out to be this old lady? Damn it, this old lady is really perverted in her decisiveness. This old woman has been targeting our Yu and treating her very badly. Although I haven't seen her in person, I feel that this old woman is extremely arrogant just by listening to what Yu and my mother said. If it's this old woman, you can't hook up with so many women. What if she goes crazy and bites you?" Yu Lily laughed but did not answer. She was busy until she got off work. During this period, the old lady called Yu Lily many times, but Yu Lily directly ignored her. Yi Yu accompanied the old lady in the hotel and waited for Yu Lily to get off work. The old lady took out her cell phone and made countless calls, but Yu Lily did not answer. Old Mrs. Shun was a little depressed. She leaned against the window of the hotel and looked out. She looked very gloomy. Her manager and good friend Mira had already called her countless times, but she didn't dare answer any of them. She looked at the time. She had to go to work at 6:30 p.m., but she was worried about leaving the old lady here alone. She glanced at the old lady and wanted to call Shin Manting or Shin Jilia, but she didn't dare to. If the old lady knew about it, she might scold her even more. By that time, Brother Luo, and would be even more. "Don't you have something to do? Then go do it. I'll be fine here alone." Chapter 1000. Old Mrs. Shun was a little impatient. She waved her hand and said, "Do you think I'm a child? Go." Yi Yu didn't stay any longer. She left the hotel and took a taxi. Yi Yu arrived at the recording site at 6 o'clock. She put on makeup and got ready just in time for the recording. After about 2 hours, the recording was over. After it was over, Yi Yu found that Shen Luo and had called her several times. She was ecstatic and immediately called him back. Shen Luo and picked up the phone, but his voice was a little gloomy. He said, "Yi Yu, where did you take Grandma?" Hearing this tone, Yi Yu's original joy suddenly seemed to be poured down by a basin of cold water, and it suddenly cooled down a lot. "Grandma said she wanted to come to Kingstown, but she didn't let me tell you so. So you took Grandma to Kingstown? Yi Yu, are you crazy? You are an actress. You have to film every day. How can you have time to take care of Grandma? Do you want Grandma to go with you to film?" Actress. Those two words brought a great deal of humiliation to Yi Yu. The Shin family was like this. They called her profession an actress and said it with a contemptuous tone. However, Yi Yu thought that Shen Luo and was different. After all, he had never said such words in front of her. But at this moment, Yi Yu felt very uncomfortable and defended, "Brother Luo, and I'm an actress, not an actress. What's the difference?" Shen Luo and asked with a sneer, "Grandma hates you so much. How can she go to Kingstown with you? How did you trick her?" No matter what, you have to bring Grandma home right now. Dad and Mom are going crazy. Do you know how serious the consequences will be if you act so insensibly?" Shen Luo and sounded very angry. "You're the one who brought Grandma home. Grandma is fine in the hotel. She won't." Yi Yu tried to explain, but Shen Luo and didn't give her a chance to speak at all. "You, I know Grandma doesn't like you and you're very upset, but it's not a good way to please the old people. Now Mom and Dad are very angry about this matter. You'd better bring her back quickly. Yu, I know Grandma doesn't like you and you're very upset, but it's not the right way to please the old people. Yu's heart felt as if it had been pried open. She felt extremely uncomfortable. All right. On the way back to the hotel, Yu tried to organize the words in her head. She hoped that the old lady wouldn't scold her too harshly. When she reached the hotel, she realized that the old lady had disappeared. Yu's heart skipped a beat, and her expression changed drastically. He turned around and went to the bathroom, the balcony, and after looking around he did not find the old lady. The suitcase was nowhere to be seen, but the hotel keycard was still in the room. Her face immediately turned pale. Thinking of the time when the old lady sneaked into Kingstown and almost got into trouble, her heart felt like it was going to fly out. He called the old lady, but the robotic female voice indicated that the other party's phone was turned off. It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. If something really happened to old Mrs. Shun, the Shuns would never let her off. How could Shun Luo let her off? What should he do? Chapter 1001. Since the old lady likes you Lily so much, she must have gone to find you Lily, right? But I don't have you Lily's cell phone number at all. What should I do? In a panic, Yu thought of Yi Chanchan. Yi Chanchan seems to live with you Lily, right? When Yi Chanchan received Yu's call, she was sitting on the sofa watching a Korean drama. Seeing Yu's call, she immediately picked it up and was ready to ask her about the strange things that happened today. But Yu's first sentence was, "Sister, is your roommate there?" Yes. Yi Chanchan was a little confused. Why are you looking for her? Let her answer the phone. I have something to talk to her about. Yi Chanchan took the phone and immediately jumped to Yu Lily's room. She knocked on the door and walked in, then gave the phone to her. Hello, I'm Yu. We met at the train station today, Yu said. Yu Lily knew who she was and asked, "What's wrong? Have you seen my grandmother? I just went to work and when I came back I found that she was gone, and her phone was turned off." As she spoke, Yu Lily could clearly hear the panic in her voice. You saved her last time. If something happened to her on the road this time, Yu Lily was shocked. She also knew that this was not a trivial matter, so she comforted her. Don't worry too much. Let's split up and go to the places where the old lady might go. Does she know anyone here? Yes. Enchanting and Shinjilia. All of a sudden, Yu thought of them and said, I'll call them. It's my aunt and uncle. Okay. While talking on the phone, Yu Lily also stood up, put on a coat and said, I'll also go out to look for her. If there is any news, let's inform each other. Thank you. Yu was about to cry. After hanging up the phone, Yu Lily briefly explained the situation to Yi Chanchan and went out to look for her. Speaking of the places where the old lady might go, the first thing that came to Yu Lily's mind was the busy street where she saved the old lady last time. Yu Lily didn't understand why the old lady liked her so much. But, if she guessed correctly, the old lady's disappearance was likely to be looking for her. Yu Lily and Yi Chanchan immediately headed in that direction. As expected, when Yu Lily reached the road, she saw old Mrs. Shun sitting on her suitcase by the roadside. That place was where the old lady had been lying the last time Yu Lily had found her. Yu Lily felt a little speechless, but she immediately went forward and called out, Grandma, so you're here. When old Mrs. Shun saw Yu Lily, her eyes immediately lit up and she shouted, Miss Lily, you're here. Oh, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Why are there so many mosquitoes in such cold weather in Kingstown? Because this is the South. It's different from the North. Yu Lily was a little helpless. She helped her pull up the suitcase and said, I'll take you back to the hotel. Miss Yi is looking for you urgently. Chapter 1002. Yi Chanchan felt very puzzled when she heard the old lady's words. Yu Lily doesn't seem to know this old woman well, does she? Yu was right. That old woman was sick in the head. Yu Lily was a little embarrassed. She immediately changed the topic and said, Have you eaten? Old Mrs. Shen was moved. She shook her head and said, No, I'm so hungry. Yu Lily was speechless. Yi Chanchan picked up her mobile phone and called Yi Yu. After telling her the address, she found a restaurant with Yu Lily and sat down. The old lady hadn't eaten yet. As soon as she arrived at the restaurant and ordered, she immediately began to eat. When Yi Yu arrived, there were two people following behind her. Enchanting and Shinjilia. When Yi Chanchan saw Shinjilia, her eyes lit up and she shouted, It's you. What are you doing here? Shinjilia was also surprised to see her and said, I'm here to see my grandmother. Do you know my grandmother? Yi Chanchan's eyes widened. Your grandmother? Isn't she Yi Yu's grandmother? Oh. Yi Yu is my sister-in-law. Yi Qianshan should be glad that she didn't drink water. Otherwise she would have spat it out at this moment. The world is so big but the circle is so small. Shinjilia is actually Yi Yu's uncle? In other words, he is Shinluo, Anne's younger brother? Oh my god, how could there be such a coincidence? Uncle, do you know my sister? Yi Yu came up from behind. After seeing that the old lady was safe and sound, she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. When Shinjilia heard Yi Yu shout, he felt a little strange. Is she your sister? So, we are relatives by marriage, ha? Shinjilia laughed, looked at Yu Lily and said, Where did you find my grandmother? I didn't know that you were the kind-hearted person who saved my grandmother last time. My grandmother also likes you very much. It seems that we are really destined to be together. It's a waste of this heaven-sent opportunity if we don't get together. Yu Lily took a sip of milk tea, rolled her eyes at him and said, Take your grandmother away. I'm going back. Shinmanting stepped forward and glanced at the old lady who was still eating. She said, Grandma, do you know that my parents are worried sick about you in the capital? You are too capricious. Old Mrs. Shin ignored her. She looked at Yu Lily and said, This restaurant doesn't taste good. Next time take me to one that tastes good. Shinmanting was a little upset and looked at Yu Lily indignantly. Not only did this woman steal her man, but even her grandmother liked her a little more. What? Grandma, it's time to go back. Let's go to my villa. It's the villa Ming gave me. It's big and comfortable. Let's live together, okay? Shinmanting coaxed. However, old Mrs. Shin didn't buy it at all. She said, You can go back. I've already told Lily that I'll sleep with her today. You don't have to worry about me. Yu Lily almost choked on her milk tea. She turned to look at old Mrs. Shun and said, Grandma, you should go back with them. It's not convenient for me. The room is too small. It can't accommodate a great Buddha like you. But she didn't finish her sentence. Old Mrs. Shun looked at Yu Lily and asked with a hint of resentment, Do you dislike me? Yes. Chapter 1003. No matter how stupid old Mrs. Shun was, she knew that Yu Lily had acquiesced. Just a moment ago he had a look of anticipation on his face, but now he had collapsed. Such a change in expression was seen by everyone. Yu Lily felt a little guilty, but she still hardened her heart and looked away. Seeing this, Shinmanting snorted and said, How cruel. Sure enough, a person who is willing to sell herself is also hard-hearted. Yu Lily looked up at her with cold eyes. Shinmanting saw her expression and felt a little proud in her heart. She said, I heard that you broke up with Ming, but you have been Ming's mistress for so many years. Even if you don't have any credit, you have worked hard. You should also attend Ming's wedding. As she said this, she opened her bag and took out a stack of beautiful red booklets. There is no name on it. You can write it yourself and take it out directly. Mistress. Yi Qianshan and Yi Yu didn't know this. They looked at each other and saw surprise in each other's eyes. Other guests next to them heard it and also looked over curiously. Yu Lily's face darkened and her eyes turned cold. She sneered and said, Miss Shin really has a big heart. You're preparing for your wedding and at the same time, you're trying to get another man to play the taboo game. Isn't it cool to be two-timing? Hearing this, Shinmanting's hand trembled violently, and her face changed dramatically. She looked at Yu Lily incredulously. It was impossible. Shinluo, and only showed that side to her when no one was around, and Yu Lily was not familiar with her. Did she get the news from Shinluo? Shinmanting's breathing became rapid, and her hand holding the invitation suddenly tightened. However, she quickly pretended to be calm and sneered, What do you mean by this? You know very well what I mean. Yu Lily looked at her, stood up, and raised her eyebrows with a smile. I'll go back first. Take care of yourself. Yu Lily quickly walked out. Seeing this, Yi Qianshan quickly followed. Holding the blank invitation, Shinmanting's face quickly changed and became extremely ugly. Shinjilia looked at Shinmanting and asked in a low voice, Is it true? You have another man? Shinmanting's breathing quickened and she shouted, Shut up. She stomped her foot and turned to leave. Yu felt a little strange. Yu Lily's words kept echoing in her mind, taboo. Yi Qianshan knew that Yu Lily's ex-boyfriend was Ming, but she didn't know that Yu Lily was a sugar baby. Subconsciously, Yi Qianshan thought of the plot in Yu Lily's manga. It seemed that the female protagonist was kept by the male protagonist, but in her heart, there was always a villain who resisted. Could it be that Yu Lily was painting her own story? However, when Yi Qianshan saw Yu Lily's expression, she didn't say anything. She quietly followed Yu Lily back home. However, as soon as she got out of the elevator, she saw a man standing in front of her house. A tall and handsome figure was standing at the door with a cigarette between his long fingers, which was emitting faint white smoke. When Yi Qianshan saw Ming, she felt even more perplexed. She had just heard that Shenmanting was two-timing, but what was the difference between Ming and Shenmanting now? Yi Qianshan felt that it was unfair for Yu Lili. When she saw Ming, she didn't say anything. She took out her key and asked in a low voice, "It can't be true, right? You have another man?" Shenmanting breathed quickly and shouted, "Shut up." Shenmanting stomped her foot and turned to leave. Yu felt a little strange. Yu Lili's words kept echoing in her mind, taboo. Yi Qianshan knew that Yu Lili's ex-boyfriend was Ming, but she didn't know that Yu Lili was a sugar baby. Subconsciously, Yi Qianshan thought of the plot in Yu Lili's manga. It seemed that the female protagonist was kept by the male protagonist, but in her heart, there was always a villain who resisted. Could it be that Yu Lili was painting my own story? However, when she saw Yu Lili's expression, Yi Qianshan didn't say anything. She silently followed Yu Lili back home. When she got out of the elevator, she saw a man standing in front of her house. The tall and handsome figure was standing at the door with a cigarette between his long fingers, which was emitting faint white smoke. When Yi Qianshan saw Ming, she felt even more perplexed. She had just heard that Shenmanting was two-timing, but what was the difference between Ming and Shenmanting now? Chapter 1004. The atmosphere was so quiet that it was a little strange. Yu Lili had not looked at him until now, as if he did not exist. Yi Qianshan was a little scared, and her hand that was opening the door was shaking. Finally, Yi Qianshan opened the door and breathed a sigh of relief. She immediately slipped in. But when Yu Lili was about to go in, Ming suddenly took her hand behind her and said, "You, let's talk." Yu Lili tried to pull her hand back, but she couldn't. She turned her head and looked at Ming. Under Ming's eyes, there was a layer of light blue compared to a few days ago, and he looked a little tired. On his clean and white face there was a serious look. Yu Lili slightly raised her lips and smiled. "There is nothing to talk about between us, Master O. You think too highly of me." There was a smile in her voice and words. There was not the slightest bit of unfriendliness in his tone. In fact, there was even a hint of flattery. However, in Ming's ears, he felt that there was an indescribable sarcasm. It seemed that Yu Lili was mocking him, and he felt very uncomfortable. Ming's eyes were deeper, and there was a trace of displeasure in his beautiful peach blossom eyes. He said, "Talk properly. Is there anything wrong with me talking like this?" Yu Lili's voice was a little sharp, and even Yi Qianshan felt that her tone was asking for a beating, let alone Ming. Ming's eyes were gloomy, and he held her hand tighter and said, "I miss you so much." Yi Qianshan was abused and silently hid aside. Yu Lili's heart was choked and her eyes were slightly hot. She couldn't maintain the smile on her face and she tried to pull her hand back, but Ming didn't let go. Ming stared at her. His peach blossom eyes, which used to be casual and elegant, were now deep. His dark brown pupils seemed to contain a lake, sparkling with the light. "Master O, it's not good for us to be like this." She looked at him with a distant and polite smile on her face. "You know, you are going to get married. Your fiancé just gave me an invitation, but I forgot to take it. But when you get married, it's better for me not to be there, right?" The smile on Yu Lili's face grew brighter and brighter. She looked at Ming and said, "After all, I'm your former mistress. I'm not even your ex-girlfriend. What kind of identity should I attend the wedding? Even I didn't expect it." Ming's heart ached. He held her hand tightly and said, "There won't be a wedding. Yu Lili, give me some more time. I will do what I said." He had said that he would marry her and make her his wife. But he couldn't do it, could he? The Shen family and the O family were well matched in social status, and Ming's mother liked Shenmanting very much. What reason did he have not to marry her? Yu Lili had nothing, and now she was suffering from sexual apathy. She couldn't give him physical pleasure at all. At best, she could only give him psychological satisfaction. He had a mistress on his left and a wife on his right. What a good life. Yu Lili smiled and pulled her hand back. "No, Master O, I don't dare to expect those things you said. I only have one request for you now." Ming narrowed his eyes and seemed to have guessed something. Chapter 1005. Entangled, Ming's heart seemed to be squeezed tightly, and he couldn't help but feel pain. Yu Lili's smile widened and she said, "You're going to make me feel awkward. When other people ask me, 'Hey Yu Lili, who is this to you?' I won't be able to answer them. Do you know that?" As she said that, Yu Lili's eyes became redder. She tried to smile and gently put her hand on his palm. So, don't continue. Yu Lily pulled his hand away and her smile was a little stiff. Ming let go of her hand, but raised his hand to hold her shoulder. He clasped her head with his palm, bowed his head and kissed her lips. Yu Lily was shocked by his unexpected action, and her heart suddenly jumped. Ming's hand climbed up her waistline, and he gently sucked her lips, gently and lovingly. Such a kiss had nothing to do with lust. It was just a light kiss and then he released her. In the future, I won't let you be unable to answer. Ming stroked her face with his big hand and his voice was soft. Yu Lily pushed him away and turned her head. Then she quickly entered the house and closed the door. Yi Chanshan saw Yu Lily come in and blinked. Yu Lily's eyes were red and when she saw Yi Chanshan's look she smiled. Are you in a cold war? Yi Chanshan looked at her and asked. Cold war? When a couple or a husband and wife ignored each other because of a quarrel, it was called a cold war. But she and Ming, they were not a couple nor a husband and wife, were they? When Yu Lily heard that she sneered and said, there is no cold war. It's just a breakup. After that Yu Lily walked into her room. Seeing that, Yi Chanshan sighed and said, ask the world what is love. It makes people live and die for each other. For a period of time, Ming didn't appear again. Yu Lily began to take on the work of the editor, and her performance was much worse than Yi Chanshan's. She was praised by Editor-in-Chief Zhou several times, and she even held a celebration party for her. After old Mrs. Shun stopped pestering her, Shenjilia's pursuit became more and more aggressive. In the past he would only wait for her at the company after work, but recently, it had evolved into squatting at the entrance of the neighborhood. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Yu Lily would be followed by Shenjilia. Shenjilia smiled brightly and said, hello, you're running in the morning too? What a coincidence. Yu Lily just wanted to laugh, so she mercilessly exposed him. The neighborhood you live in is half an hour's drive from here. You run really fast. Awesome. Shenjilia didn't seem to realize that he had been ridiculed. He laughed out loud and even looked a little proud of himself. He said, well said, well said. Shall we have breakfast together later? No, I'm going to buy one for Chanshan. Okay, then I'll go to your house to eat. Shenjilia replied calmly, that's all. I'll take you to work afterward. It's on the way. What bullsh asterisk t? She rolled her eyes at him and quickened her pace. Shenjilia was tall and had long legs, so he easily caught up with her. He overtook her by half and said, by the way, has the illness you went to see improved? Sexual apathy. Chapter 1006. Are you concerned about me? Shenjilia raised his eyebrows proudly. He was not discouraged when Yu Lily rolled her eyes at him. That's our hospital. I can go if I want. I'll come back after a formality. You don't have to be so serious. Oh really? That's great. Obviously, she didn't want to continue the conversation. Shenjilia quickly changed the topic and said, to be honest, your problem can't be ignored. If a woman has this problem, it must be treated. Yu Lily didn't answer. She panted and ran faster. Yu Lily stared at the front, but as she ran, her stomach became more and more painful. Frowning, Yu Lily slowed down a little. Shenjilia followed her very easily and said, I'm serious. Maybe it will cause menstruation. If it is more serious, it may cause problems with the uterus. It is obviously a psychological factor, but the body is closely related to the mood, so it can't be ignored. I happen to be free recently, so I'll treat it for you. Shut up. Yu Lily roared. Her stomach hurt even more. She turned her head and shouted, you're so noisy. Shenjilia immediately shut up and looked at her figure in a very good mood. But he found that Yu Lily's footsteps were getting slower and slower. Shenjilia followed her. Seeing Yu Lily like this, he slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, what's wrong? Yu Lily frowned and shook her head. Her lower abdomen was cramping. She took a breath, but the original pain became more painful. Yu Lily couldn't help but squat down holding her stomach. Seeing her like this, Shenjilia also knew that the situation couldn't be underestimated. He reached out and touched her forehead. It was very cold and there was a thin layer of cold sweat. Yu Lily's breathing became more and more rapid. Her body seemed to be pressed by a heavy weight. She reached out and grabbed his hand. Shenjilia was even more shocked and asked, what's wrong? Yu Lily's eyes became darker and darker, and her head became heavier and heavier. Yu Lily pushed him away, turned her head, and vomited. However, she only vomited a few mouthfuls of water and stomach acid. Shenjilia saw that, patted her on the back and said, you can't do this. I'll take you to the hospital. Yu Lily didn't answer. She squatted on the ground and felt dizzy. It took a while for him to recover. Lily grabbed Shinjilia's hand with both of her hands and helped him stand up. Her head was dizzy and she was about to fall. Shinjilia picked her up in his arms and ran to the back. He placed her in his car and drove to a nearby hospital. The seats in the car were made of white leather. When he picked her up from the seat, Shinjilia noticed the red stain on the seat. Lily squinted her eyes and looked half asleep. She looked very uncomfortable. Shinjilia finally understood that the woman was on her period. However, would there be such a big reaction during menstruation? All of the girlfriends he had had in the past were still full of energy during their periods. At most, they would pretend to be weak and weak. This was the first time Shinjilia had seen someone like this. Chapter 1007. Shinjilia was a little confused. He thought for a moment and turned to look at Lily. Lily was lying on the bed, weak, and her eyes were blacking out. Hearing this, she said, "Yes, I had a miscarriage." Abortion or medical abortion? Medical abortion. Well, women should take care of their own bodies. Medical abortion is the most harmful to the body. You haven't recovered yet. How many times has it been like today? Lily looked at the ceiling dizzily and said, "I don't know how many times, but occasionally, it's better than this situation." The doctor gave Lily some medicine and said, "Have you seen a doctor? This kind of situation should be taken seriously. You can't underestimate it. Maybe you can't get pregnant. You need to find a Chinese medicine practitioner to take good care of it." Then she looked at Shinjilia with some blame and said, "A man should look after a woman and take care of her. How can she not recover?" After the infusion, Lily's head was buzzing. When she heard the doctor's words, she had no strength and spirit. She slowly closed her eyes and fell asleep unconsciously. When she woke up, Shinjilia was at the bedside. Seeing Lily wake up, he seemed a little surprised and said, "You're awake? I just made brown sugar water. Drink some." Lily blinked and looked at Shinjilia, feeling a little confused. Then she remembered something and was shocked, shouting, "What time is it now?" "It's after 10 o'clock. Shinjilia looked at his watch, but when he saw Lily's horrified look, he laughed and said, "Don't worry, Yi Chanshan has already asked for leave for you and explained the situation. What do you want to eat? I'll buy it for you." Lily breathed a sigh of relief, but her lower abdomen still hurt. Hearing Shinjilia's words, she shook her head. Just then there was only a little medicine left. The nurse then pulled out the needle and Shinjilia helped Lily up. Lily had been lying for more than 2 hours and felt much better, but she still had no strength and her lower abdomen hurt. Today she was wearing a light blue sports suit, and there was a red mark on the back of her body. Shinjilia saw it, took off his coat and wrapped it around her waist, saying, "I'll take you back. Can you walk?" "Sure. Thank you." Lily put her hand on his and said, "I'll walk slowly." Shinjilia didn't force her. He helped her out of the hospital. However, just as he walked out of the hospital, he saw a Bentley driving over. Lily accidentally glanced at the license plate number and was stunned. She looked up and saw Oming getting out of the car. At that moment, Shinjilia's arms were circling around Lily's. He held her hands with both of his hands as if he was protecting a treasure. Lily also had a men's sports coat tied around her waist. Oming's face darkened. He quickly walked up to her and reached out his hand to grab Lily without saying a word. However, Shinjilia was quick to react. He quickly held Lily in his arms and looked at him with a warning look. "What do you want to do?" Lily was held tightly in Shinjilia's arms. She was caught off guard and looked up at Shinjilia. Shinjilia's face was unspeakably serious. Vaguely, he looked at Oming with a hint of warning and hostility. Chapter 1008. Hearing that, Shinjilia laughed. His laughter was clear, with obvious unhappiness. Lily could clearly feel the vibration of his vocal cords. She wanted to push him away, but her whole body was tightly held, and it was difficult to raise her strength. "I say, brother-in-law, are you mistaken? Shouldn't your woman be my sister, Shinmanting? Now Lily is my girlfriend. Are you trying to steal my future brother-in-law's woman?" Shinjilia's voice was full of laughter. He raised his eyebrows and looked at him with sarcasm and disdain. When Lily heard that, her eyes widened. She looked up at him and shouted, "Shinjilia? Shoo, don't talk." Shinjilia lowered his head and looked at her with endless tenderness in his eyes. "Anyway, you have broken up. It's better to make some things clear. Every time he comes to pester you, you feel very annoyed, don't you?" "Yes." However, at the same time there was a strange feeling. She loved him, but she minded that he was not hers alone. She wanted to see him, but she couldn't accept that he was engaged to another woman at the same time. The inexplicable relationship between them was the most confusing. When Ming heard Shinjilia's words, he was so angry that he laughed. He looked at Yu Lily and said in a cold voice, "I heard that you asked for sick leave. What's wrong with you?" Her face was pale, and she snuggled in Shinjilia's arms like an ordinary little woman, like a little bird. She was completely different from when she was facing him. "It has nothing to do with you, brother-in-law." Shinjilia hugged her, and the smile on his face was sinister. "Why do you care so much? My sister is the one who is planning the wedding. If you have the time to care about other women, you might as well take care of your own business. Don't end up in a mess." While speaking, Shinjilia walked forward with Yu Lily in his arms and said, "I'm also doing it for your own good, brother-in-law." Ming stretched out his arms and put them in front of him, but his eyes fell on Yu Lily. His pair of peach blossom eyes were full of doubt and disbelief. He asked, "Is it true?" Yu Lily leaned against Shinjilia's arms and her face was pale. Hearing Ming's obviously uncertain words, her heart was beating fast. Really? What would happen to him if what she said was true? If what she said wasn't true, then there was no doubt that Ming would go back and forth and worry about both sides. As for her, she was still Ming's woman, a pitiful mistress whom everyone looked down upon. Yu Lily looked at him and hugged him tightly. She buried her face in his chest and whispered, "Let's go. I feel terrible." There was no direct answer. He did not say it was true, nor did he say it was false. But in Ming's eyes, such an attitude was tantamount to a tacit agreement. Shinjilia's big eyes were shining. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Ming in front of him. He said, "Sorry, brother-in-law, you are in the way." He tried to push Ming's hand away, but Ming twisted it and grabbed Shinjilia's hand. He looked at Yu Lily in anger and sneered, "I haven't seen you for 2 days, and you can't wait to throw yourself into the arms of another man. Yu Lily, are you so lonely?" His ruthless and sharp words were like thousands of sharp blades stabbing into Yu Lily's heart, ruthless and decisive. Chapter 1009. He was really angry, but what did it have to do with her? When Yu Lily heard Ming's words, she laughed and said, "Mr. O, did you make a mistake?" Ming was even angrier when he heard that. He looked at her and said nothing. "We broke up a long time ago, didn't we?" Yu Lily looked at him expressionlessly, and her body felt weak. Even if she wanted to make a disdainful expression, she felt too weak to do so. "Now, the person who pesters me is you, and the person who wants to marry me is you. In the past, it was you who ended the relationship first. Why do you have the final say? I will also be tired, Ming." As she said that, she closed her eyes and leaned on Shinjilia's chest. "I didn't agree." Ming looked at her. She was obviously uncomfortable and her face was pale. Ming felt sad. "I didn't agree, Yu Lily. The reason why I let you go is that I want you to calm down. I didn't want you to break up with me." You think too highly of yourself." Yu Lily smiled gently. She was indescribably weak, but the words she said were like cold and sharp, stabbing into Ming's heart. "Yu Lily." Ming was furious, but when he saw her like this, he forcibly suppressed his anger and reached out his hand. "Give her to me." But how could Shinjilia be obedient? Holding Yu Lily, Shinjilia clearly noticed that Yu Lily was about to lose her strength again. His face darkened and he shouted, "Go away. Don't you see that she is uncomfortable? You made her so uncomfortable for 4 years, and now you don't let her go back to rest. How dare you say you love her? Ming, you are so shameless." Shinjilia carried Yu Lily in his arms and strode in the direction of his car. Ming was left standing in the same place and his head was buzzing. So uncomfortable for 4 years? What does that mean? He carefully put her in the back seat of the car and let her lie down. After Shinjilia put her down, he went to the driver's seat and started the car. In front, Ming came over and stood beside the car, his eyes staring at Yu Lily in the back seat. Shinjilia sneered, looked away and whispered, "You are so shameless." Yu Lily heard it clearly in the back. She squinted her eyes and leaned against the car. When they got home, Shinjilia took out the keys from her pocket and keyed in the password before gently placing her on the bed. After boiling some water, Shinjilia rummaged through the entire kitchen and finally found some brown sugar. He made some brown sugar water for her and blew on it to cool it down before helping her drink it. Yu Lily knew that the man was Shinjilia and she felt guilty. He opened his eyes and said, "You go back first, I can do it alone." "No, I haven't eaten yet. We agreed to eat together." Shinjilia glanced at his watch. It was already past 11 o'clock. He clicked his tongue and said, but I'm afraid breakfast is out of the question. What do you want to eat for lunch? What are you doing? Shinjulia's face reddened. He coughed lightly and said, I'll go buy it. I don't know how to cook. Lily smiled and shook her head. I can't eat. Then I'll just buy something. When I ring the doorbell later, you can open the door for me. All right. Shinjulia was secretly happy to hear her answer. Normally, no matter how much he shouted or knocked on the door, the two women wouldn't open it. Chapter 10:10. Sure enough, it's right to get up early every day. Shinjulia stood up with a smile and went downstairs to buy some food. Lily took the opportunity to change into her pajamas. She threw the clothes in the laundry basket in the bathroom and went back to her room to sleep. When she heard the doorbell ring, she didn't know what time it was. However, when she opened the door, she didn't see Shinjulia. It was Ming. Seeing her pale face, Ming's heart didn't feel good, so he walked in. Lily wanted to push him away, but she didn't have much strength left in her. He gently held her hand and walked in openly. Lily was furious and shouted, Ming, what are you doing here? Her voice was not loud and it even sounded a little weak. Ming pulled her to sit on the sofa and put down the things in his hand. Lily looked at them and saw that they were all supplements for blood and uterus. Ming looked at her and said, I'm looking at you. Lily's body was much better than before. She didn't feel so uncomfortable, but she was not as strong as usual. Now she just wanted to sleep, so she said impatiently, Now that you've seen me, can we go? Ming looked at her face and felt a little distressed. He said, I just went to ask the doctor. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. It must be Shinjulia coming back. Lily quietly breathed a sigh of relief, stood up and went to open the door. But Ming grabbed her hand and said, Is it that guy? It's none of your business, Ming. You're too nosy. The same words from Lily's mouth were more hurtful than from Shinjulia's mouth. Ming's eyes darkened. He looked at Lily and said, What he just said at the hospital gate, is it true? Lily tilted her head and looked at him with a sneer. Ming's eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward and put his hands around her waist. Lily's body suddenly tightened and she looked at Ming with surprise. Ding dong. Ding dong. Ding dong. The doorbell rang one after another. Lily looked at the door and knew that it must be Shinjulia standing outside. However, her body was surrounded by Ming, and Lily couldn't walk over it all. Ming looked at her. His beautiful peach blossom eyes were deep, like the deep blue sea in the night sky. He said slowly, Do you know that you have a habit? Every time he questioned her, if she didn't want to tell the truth, she would muddle through. At first, Ming was deceived. Towards the end, Ming had basically figured out her routine. When he questioned her just now, she did not answer him directly. Yes or no. In other words, it was very likely to be fake. It was all a lie made up by Shinjulia. When Lily heard his words, she took a step back and reached out to push him away. I'm used to it. It's none of your business. Let go of me. Answer me directly. Is that guy really your boyfriend? Yes or no? Ming looked at her, his eyes as deep as the sea. Ding dong. Ding dong. The doorbell continued to ring. Lily looked at him, looked at his hand and said indifferently, My boyfriend is outside. It's not good for you to do this. Yes or no? Ming was very persistent. He looked at her and his hand tightened. Chapter 10:11. I don't believe it, Ming said coldly. He looked at her slightly evasive eyes and sneered. You really can't lie. Do you think I will believe it just because you say it casually? Deceiving yourself. Lily was a little annoyed and struggled with her hands. He's much better than you. At least he wouldn't force me to do something I don't want to do when I'm in such pain. He's not like you, self-righteous and deceiving yourself like a fool. Lily was a little annoyed. Ming's heart was choked, and his hand holding her was unconsciously tightened. Lily wailed and shouted, It hurts so much. My waist and stomach. Ming was shocked and immediately released his hand. Lily bent down with a painful look on her face, holding her stomach. Does it hurt? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. At the same time, the door was opened. Shinjulia came in with the key in his hand. When he saw Ming, his face sank. He quickly walked over to Lily's side and placed the things that he had bought with great difficulty on the coffee table. He helped Lily up and gently said, How are you feeling? Take a break first. I'll help you in. Ming gritted his teeth and went forward to push Shinjulia away. Shinjulia was caught off guard and was pushed to the side. They looked at each other and saw anger in each other's eyes. What are you doing here? You are not welcome here. Shinjulia looked at him and said word by word. He helped Yu Lily up and whispered, Does it hurt? Is it that guy's fault again? That guy, is he talking about me? Oming laughed and looked at Shinjulia. His eyes were like a storm raging. When he was about to speak, he heard Yu Lily said, Yes, it's this guy's fault. Yu Lily bent down and did not look up. Her voice was indescribably weak. Shinjulia was distressed. He held her and said, I will take you in to rest. I didn't mean it. Oming looked at Yu Lily and felt a little guilty. I'm sorry, Yu Lily, I believe you didn't mean it, but... Yu Lily seemed to chuckle, looked up at him and said slowly, The damage has been done, hasn't it? Oming's heart was shocked. The hurt in Yu Lily's eyes in front of him was so strange that it was not like her. You didn't do it on purpose, but have you ever thought about my feelings? Yu Lily looked at him and her eyes became redder. You only know what you want and what you don't want. Have you ever thought about what I want and what I don't want? Yu Lily looked at him with tears in her eyes. No. You haven't thought about any of them. You're high and mighty, you're insufferably arrogant, you were born with a golden spoon in your mouth. You're the only son of the O clan. You've had everything you wanted since you were a child. In fact, you've been able to turn over the clouds and reign in the O clan. You've been living like a crown prince since you were a child. But so what? She was an orphan who had nothing. Since she was young, she knew that she had to carefully pretend to be obedient. Only in this way could she get candy and make the adults like her. But Oming didn't need to. He just needed to curl his index finger and he could get anything. They didn't belong to the same world, so how could they be together? The gap between them couldn't be made up by a few years of being a mistress and a few years of famous brands. I don't care. Do you think I'm with you just for money? You regard me as your mistress, a moving inflatable doll. That's all. Do you think your pestering is true love? Yu Lily laughed and looked at him sarcastically. This is called being cheap, Mr. O. Oming smiled and looked at her sarcastically. Chapter 10-12. This is called being cheap. Her sharp words pierced Oming's heart. Oming looked at her with a complicated expression. His heart couldn't help but feel a little sour and a little painful. I didn't. Oming gritted his teeth and roared. Yu Lily, don't I know how I treat you? Of course I know. Yu Lily looked at him and smiled slightly. But do you really know how you treat me? He had always thought that he was good to her. Indeed very good. But it was not what Yu Lily wanted. What do you mean? You know it in your heart. Yu Lily smiled and closed her eyes tiredly. I don't want to play this boring game with you anymore. Go Oming. I don't want to be with you. I really don't want to. Yu Lily leaned on Shinjulia and slightly tilted her head, buried it in his chest and said, Please leave and don't come back in the future. Yu Lily was exhausted by the time she finished yelling. Shinjulia hugged her tightly, looked at Oming with a cold face and shouted, Didn't you hear me? Please leave. After that, Shinjulia carried Yu Lily into her room. He put Yu Lily down and looked down at her. He found that her face was already wet. Her pale face was glistening with tears. It was very beautiful, like a rose that was about to wither. Yu Lily was the toughest woman he had ever seen. She was not the most beautiful, but she was unique and fascinating. Shinjulia had had many girlfriends, but none of them made him feel so sorry. Oming is a bastard. After settling her down and gently covering her with the quilt, Shinjulia sat on her bed and didn't go out again. Yu Lily closed her eyes for a long time and asked, Is he gone? I don't know. Shinjulia didn't go out. He looked at Yu Lily and asked, Are you still uncomfortable? Yes, I'm hungry. Shinjulia chuckled and said, I'll bring the food in to eat. Okay. Yu Lily still didn't open her eyes. Shinjulia got up and went out. He didn't know when Oming had left, but there was a note on the table. On it, there were beautiful and bold words written by Oming. Wait for me. Shinjulia's heart sank when he heard those two words. This guy still hasn't given up. He tore up the note and tossed it into the trash can. He brought the takeout he had just bought in and pretended as if nothing had happened. He smiled and took out the food. It was past 7 o'clock in the evening when Shinluo and received Oming's message. Oming's message was very simple. Let's make a deal. Shinluo and glanced at the message and replied, I'm in Kingstown. See you tomorrow. He tossed his phone aside and looked at Yu. Yu was a little scared. Looking at Shinluo and in front of her, her heart was beating fast. She shouted, Brother Luo Han. Are you afraid now? Shinluo and took a step forward and looked at the layout of the surroundings. You're going to let Grandma live in a shabby place like this? Don't you know that Grandma is in poor health? Shenluo and looked at her with a gloomy expression. Yu didn't dare to look up. She lowered her face and mumbled, Don't you know that Grandma is not very smart? Brother Luo, and Grandma asked me to bring her here. I also. Chapter 10:13. When Yu heard this, she shrank her shoulders and did not dare to refute. Shenluo and looked at Yu with some disappointment and said, I thought you would at least be a little more sensible after being a manager for so many years. I didn't expect you to be the same as before. Do you think you can please Grandma by doing this? Yes, she couldn't. Moreover, such a Yu would make people feel more annoyed and annoyed. Yu was well aware of this, but she didn't realize it until old Mrs. Shen was taken back. I'm afraid that she didn't want to come to Kingstown, and she really wanted to exclude me. After Yu thought through everything, she felt more and more uncomfortable. The old lady was really unscrupulous in order to drive me away from the Shen family. Now even Shenluo, looking at Yuyu's aggrieved look, Shenluo, and felt even more angry. He sneered and said, Who are you showing this to now? Do you think I dare not scold you when I see you like this? No, Brother Luo, and this time it's my fault. Yu lowered her head and looked at the ground. There won't be a next time. Seeing Yuyu's look, Shenluo, and shook his head gently and said, Forget it. As he spoke, he picked up the coat on the sofa and then walked out of the door. Yu had expected that he would not stay in her house for the night, but she still felt a little disappointed when she saw this scene. She asked, Where are you going? Do I need to report to you where I go? Shenluo, and glanced at her with a faint smile. We are husband and wife. Yes, husband and wife. Shenluo, and chuckled, but he did not care about the identity of husband and wife at all. He put on his coat and walked outside. Shenluo, and opened the door, went out and closed the door. This series of movements was smooth, without any hesitation or pause. Yu was disappointed and sat on the sofa. He had always been like this. He was waiting for her to be unable to bear it and ask for a divorce. Perhaps it was just an obsession when she was young. From a very young age, Yu told everyone that she would marry Brother Luo, and when she grew up. When they were young, Shenluo, and would also respond with a smile and say, Okay, then when you grow up, you will be my bride. Even when they were in school, Shenluo, and didn't treat them like this. However, since when did everything change? Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Yi Chanshan walked toward the door while applying a facial mask. When he opened the door, he saw a big man. When Shinjilia saw Yi Chanshan, he smiled brightly and said, Good afternoon on the weekend. Let's have afternoon tea together. Yi Chanshan touched the mask on her face and didn't say a word. She turned around and went back to browsing Weibo on the sofa. Ever since Yu Lily almost fainted during her morning run a few days ago, her relationship with Shinjilia had changed. In the past, Shinjilia had often come to look for Yu Lily, but he hadn't even been able to enter the door. However, it was completely different now. Not only did they visit frequently, but even the treatment they received was completely different. Chapter 10:14. Shinjilia brought the snacks in and put them on the table. He asked, Where is Lily? Drawing in the room, Yi Chanshan said with her eyes squinted. Shinjilia walked slowly to the door of Yu Lily's room and knocked on the door. Yu Lily thought it was Yi Chanshan, so she shouted without looking up, Come in. However, it was another person who opened the door and came in. Yu Lily was a little surprised. When she saw him, she said, Why are you here again? Didn't you say you had something to do? Well, I'm done. Shinjilia walked in and walked behind Yu Lily to watch her draw. But when she saw the male lead, an obscure expression flashed across her face. On the screen, the male lead was sitting on the sofa. His long legs and unusually long fingers were holding a cigar. He was wearing a burgundy suit, and the shape of his eyes was beautiful and long. When he squinted slightly, he looked indescribably lifelike and lifelike. Ming? Shinjilia felt a little strange, but at the same time he felt a little frustrated. Yu Lily's words were harsh, but she couldn't let go of Ming. Let's go out to eat. I bought some snacks and desserts. Let's have afternoon tea together. Shinjilia leaned closer and whispered in her ear. Yu Lily was very focused on drawing. After she answered casually, she didn't stop. After she finished the dialogue with the male lead, Yu Lily stopped. However, when she turned her head, she saw Shinjilia looking at her attentively from behind. Yu Lily was shocked, but then when she met Shinjilia's burning eyes, she couldn't help but blush. She reached out and slapped his face, shouting, "Pervert, why are you so close to me?" Shinjulia was slapped, but he didn't look angry at all. He quietly smiled and said, "Let's go." Lily was embarrassed. Shinjulia is really a master at picking up girls. Even Lily was captivated. Lily had to admit that she was impressed by his tricks. Seeing Shinjulia go out, Lily relaxed a little. Recently, Shinjulia had been taking care of her meticulously. This was something she had never experienced when she was with Ming. Ming was too overbearing. Many times he did everything without considering her feelings. Shinjulia was the exact opposite. No matter what he did, he would always consider Lily's feelings, which made her feel very comfortable. At the same time, he felt extremely guilty. She did not have any feelings for him. Not having feelings can be cultivated. When you and Ming first got together, didn't you also have feelings? Just last night, when she told Yi Chanshan about it, Yi Chanshan had said, "The best way to get out of a relationship is to start another one. You draw comics yourself. Surely you know this, don't you?" Yi Chanshan, after taking 2 deep breaths, Lily walked out. When he went out, Yi Chanshan was already eating. She held a cup of milk tea in her hand and a black forest cake in front of her. She was staring at her phone in shock. Lily's face was still warm. She picked up a cup of milk tea, put a straw in it, and watched it with Yi Chanshan. She immediately turned off the movie on her cell phone and said, "Lily, go and buy groceries. It's already so late. The vegetables won't be fresh anymore. Old Shin, go with her." Shinjulia sat quietly on the side and looked a little bored. Yi Chanshan was keenly aware of that. She immediately turned off the movie on her cell phone and said, "Lily, go and buy groceries." Chapter 10-15. Of course Lily knew what Yi Chanshan meant. Wasn't she trying to create an opportunity for them to be alone? Such an obvious intention. Lily wasn't stupid. However, it just so happened that Lily had something she wanted to clarify with Shinjulia. Without clarifying it, Lily would always feel suffocated. Taking advantage of the situation, Lily went into the room to take her bag and went to the nearby supermarket. Shinjulia could tell at a glance that he had never bought groceries before. He looked left and right. Suddenly she exclaimed and shouted, "Lily, look, this radish looks so strange." Lily turned her head in the direction of the voice and saw that he was holding a radish in his hand. However, this white radish was 2 radishes joined together. There was an obvious dent in the middle, and in the middle of the 2 radishes, there was a small radish tail poking out. Shinjulia picked up the radish and smiled brightly. "Look at this. Doesn't it look like a family of 3? Seeing the bright smile on Shinjulia's face, Lily couldn't bring herself to smile. The corners of his lips twitched as he said, "Thank you for the past few days." When Shinjulia saw the change in Lily's expression, he knew that she had something to say. He smiled and looked at her hand that was holding the handle of the cart tightly. Then, his gaze fell on her slightly shrunken shoulders. "What are you talking about?" Shinjulia shrugged his shoulders and raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't seem to notice Lily's strangeness. He put the white radish into the cart and said, "You don't have to be so polite. We're all friends." Friends? Lily felt a little embarrassed. It seemed that she did not treat him as a friend. Instead, it was a strange relationship, a strange state. Seeing her slightly embarrassed expression, Shinjulia chuckled and said, "I know what you want to say, but there are some things you'd better not say out loud." As he spoke, he leaned toward Lily, and his smile became more and more brilliant. Just when Lily thought he was going to say something, Shinjulia's smile suddenly disappeared and turned into a faint smile. He leaned over and tilted his head slightly. Lily's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively wanted to avoid him. Shinjulia's hands moved even faster. He held her head in place and whispered, "Shh, don't move." The distance between them was less than 3 centimeters, and they could feel each other's breath. Lily's body stiffened and she felt a little nervous. Did this guy want to kiss her? However, Shinjulia didn't make any further moves. He said, "Look behind me. Is there someone I know there?" Lily looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw a tall figure among the women and elderly people who were buying groceries. He was wearing a dark suit with dark patterns. His body was tall and straight and he was squinting at them. The distance was a little far and Lily was a little short-sighted. She couldn't see his expression clearly, but she could clearly see who this figure was. The angle was right behind Shinjulia. Lily's silhouette was hidden by Shinjulia's tall figure. From the back, it was impossible to see her expression. From the back it looked like they were kissing. Chapter 10:16. After Shinjilia said that, he pulled Yu Lily up, put his hand on her trolley and walked side by side with her. Ming stood behind watching them cuddle with each other, and his face became more and more gloomy. This is still in public. How dare the two of them be so presumptuous? Have they already? The more Ming thought about it, the more angry he became. Clenching his fists, Ming closed his eyes, turned around and didn't stay. Seeing Ming turn away, Shinjilia slightly raised his lips, turned his head and looked at Yu Lily. Yu Lily also looked in the direction of Ming's departure, and her eyes were slightly gloomy. I still can't let it go, how can this be? Yu Lily didn't notice the change in Shinjilia. She inadvertently turned her head and saw the green onions and garlic sprouts placed together. She couldn't help but think of the time when she went to the supermarket with Ming. Ming pushed the trolley and grabbed whatever he saw. Finally, he grabbed 2 bundles of vegetables and asked, "Which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" At that time she also frowned and asked with a distressed face, "Yes, which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" Yu Lily didn't recognize them at all, so she bought both. After returning home, Yu Lily went to cook, and Ming excitedly jumped over with a tablet and shouted, "Yu Lily, look, this round one is the green onions and the flat one is the garlic." That smiling face was as bright as the stars yesterday, shining and dazzling, but now looking back, it was very far away. However, it was deeply imprinted in her mind and it was difficult to erase. Shinjilia found that she was staring at the things in front of her, so he reached out, waved in front of her and shouted, "Lily?" Yu Lily suddenly came back to her senses, turned to look at Shinjilia, and suddenly chuckled and asked, "Tell me these 2 things, which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" Shinjilia looked at them and said, "The left one is the green onions and the right one is the garlic." Well, that's right. But Yu Lily didn't know why, but she felt a little lost. With a smile, Yu Lily pushed the cart and looked ahead. She said in a soft voice, "Shinjilia, you know my past. I've cheated a lot of people and I've been someone's mistress. I've been with Ming for so many years. Why are you still so good to me?" When Shinjilia heard that, his eyes darkened and he chuckled. "Lily, do you think I treat you well?" "I'm very good." "Tisk, if that's the case, it proves that I've succeeded." Shinjilia looked at her with a smile and continued, "If even you think that I'm good to you, doesn't that mean that I'm even better in the eyes of others? The better I treat you, the angrier Ming gets. This guy is so fickle. He's obviously engaged to my sister, but he's not honest. He should be pissed to death." Yu Lily was stunned and blinked her eyes. When Shinjilia saw her expression, he raised his eyebrows proudly. "Stealing the woman he likes is the best revenge for him. Don't you think so? Does that mean that Shinjilia is pursuing me just to get revenge on Ming? Don't feel pressured. I'm pursuing you mostly because of my sister. Only by diverting all his attention from you can he treat my sister well, right?" Shinjilia's smile didn't change and his words were very natural. Suddenly he changed the topic and asked, "I want to eat eggplant. Can you make it?" Yes. Eggplant was Yu Lily's specialty. Chapter 10:17. When they got home from grocery shopping, Shinjilia helped Yu Lily in the kitchen while she cooked. But the young master was still the young master. Washing vegetables almost flooded the kitchen, and helping to look after the fire almost burned his own clothes. In the end he was still driven out by Yu Lily. His days passed by uneventfully. Since that day when he saw her in the supermarket, he never appeared again. Love Transaction had been online for 2 months, and the number of clicks had exceeded 100 million. Compared with 2 months ago, the website traffic had more than doubled. As an author and an internal employee, Yu Lily not only enjoyed the admiration of all her colleagues, but she was also invited to the office by Editor-in-Chief Zhou. "Little Yu, you've been here for some time. In view of your excellent performance, the higher-ups have decided to give you some rewards. What do you want? Just say the word." "Anything I want? Of course, it doesn't have to be too expensive. We have to leave a good impression on the higher-ups, right?" Chief Editor Zhou liked this little girl more and more. Even though the income from comics was considerable, she still worked diligently in the company. Among her colleagues, her performance was second only to Yi Qianqian's. Such achievements were equally impressive. More importantly, Yu Lily was neither arrogant nor rash, and she was very popular in the company. Yu Lily heard Editor-in-Chief Zhou's words and said, "Well, I want to take an early vacation." "That's it?" "Yes, just like that." Editor-in-Chief Zhou was surprised. She thought that she would ask for an expensive digital screen or laptop. According to Yi Qianqian, Yu Lily didn't have a computer. However, when he thought about it, he felt that it made sense. With Yu Lily's current income, she could buy a computer whenever she wanted. Her request was very simple. Editor-in-Chief Zhou nodded and said, "It's almost New Year. When do you want to have a holiday?" "On the 22nd, I'm going to travel." The 23rd was Ming and Xin Manting's wedding. She didn't want to see them happy. Kingstown was so big and yet so small at the same time. The news of their marriage would definitely spread everywhere. At the very least, there would be one less Pure Land in the country. Hearing the word travel, Chief Editor Zhou's eyes lit up and she asked, "Where are you going to travel?" Yu Lily smiled. She thought for a moment and said, "Probably to Japan." Yu Lily asked Yi Chanshan not to tell Shinjilia about it. On the night of the 21st of December, Yu Lily packed all her luggage. She looked at the empty room and lay on the bed in boredom. All the important things were packed away. Yu Lily closed her eyes and put the headphones in her ears, listening to the bustling noise coming from the other side. Xin Manting was discussing the details of the wedding, including the makeup, guests and hotels. All of these had been prepared and they were just discussing the optimization. This kind of thorough preparation, this kind of painstaking effort, was so blissful. "Manting, someone's looking for you." "Hey, they're here." "Who is it?" Even the reply was brimming with joy. Xin Manting must be feeling very happy right now. Yu Lily felt a little jealous. She closed her eyes, took off the headphones and threw them aside. Chapter 10:18. Shen Luo, and was in a good mood when he saw the change in her expression. He looked at her and approached her step by step. Shen Manting looked at him approaching, and her face became paler and paler. She pushed back and shouted, "Sister Zhang, come here." I called Sister Zhang away. She shouldn't be outside now. The smile on his face widened. "What are you afraid of? I won't do anything to you. Big brother, I'm getting married the day after tomorrow. What do you want?" "As the big brother, can't I come to see my sister who is about to get married?" Shen Luo, and stopped in his tracks and looked at Xin Manting's pale face. His heart sank. "Am I that scary? Why do you have such a big reaction?" Xin Manting had been forced into a corner, and the cold wall was behind her. At that moment, the distance between Xin Manting and Shen Luan was less than a meter. As Shen Luo and spoke, his expression was calm. He approached her with a hint of malice. He leaned over, his hands still in his trouser pockets. Suddenly, his lips curved into a smile. "Are you afraid that I'll do it again?" His words undoubtedly poked at Xin Manting's sore spot. One more time, she had been 20 years old when old Mrs. Shen had brought her home. Poor and pitiful. He had accidentally intruded into his forbidden area and was almost torn to pieces by his Tibetan Mastiff. He had saved her, but Shen Luo, and noticed that Xin Manting's eyes were wandering. He chuckled and said, "You're actually thinking about it?" As he spoke, he reached out and placed his hand on the side of her face. In a low voice he said, "Do you want me to remind you of that night?" "No." Xin Manting suddenly panicked and pushed him away. "You promised me, Shen Luo. I'm getting married soon. What else do you want? You were the one who chose me. I didn't even have the right to choose. Are you going to go back on your word now?" "He didn't give you the right to choose?" Shen Luo, and raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "Didn't I give you a choice? Li Xiqing, Ming and me. As for my two childhood friends, you don't like them, do you? Li Xiqing's wife was pregnant. You're my big brother, how could I possibly choose you?" That was why she had chosen Ming. Coincidentally, she had pinched Ming's weak spot. She must marry Ming the day after tomorrow. Otherwise, her life would be ruined. At the same time, footsteps could be heard from outside. It was Sister Zhang. Xin Manting was delighted and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Shen Luo, and clearly saw her expression and sensed that the footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. He smiled and straightened up, saying, "As your big brother, I just came to see you. Seeing that you are so lively, I am also relieved. You must prepare well and be the most beautiful bride." With that, Shen Luo, and really turned around and left. Sister Zhang walked in with a paper bag in her hand. She smiled and said, "Miss, you are so lucky. Young master is so good to you. He knows that you are so busy that you don't have time to eat, so he specially ordered your favorite dessert. Come eat it while it's hot." Shen Manting stared blankly at the desserts that Sister Zhang had placed on the table. She asked, "Did he ask you to fetch something just now?" "Yeah." Sister Zhang put the dessert in front of her and said, "Come and try it." Shen Manting frowned and looked in the direction where he had left. She was getting more and more confused as to what he was thinking. This man was temperamental. Perhaps one day he would, dash hot little sweetheart, big CO don't come over. After one night of passion, they had disappeared for 5 years. When they met again she didn't recognize him. Mr. Bo still forcefully adopted this little kitten that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. He doted on her, loved her, violated her, and did everything he could. Chapter 10:19. Sister Zhang saw her in a daze and urged, "Come on, eat something. When you are full you can continue to work. In 2 days you will be the most beautiful bride." Hearing Sister Zhang's words, Shenmanting smiled, picked up the spoon and looked down. On the 22nd of December, Yu Lily had already started her holiday, but the plane ticket was booked for 4 a.m. on the 23rd. All day Yu Lily had been painting in her room. However, she never expected that Su Qianxi would call her. Usually, Su Qianxi was very busy with work, taking care of the children, and having personal space with Li Xiqing, so Yu Lily usually did not talk to her. The two had not contacted each other for half a month. Seeing Su Qianxi's call, Yu Lily was a bit surprised. Holding a pen, she picked up the phone and quickly answered, "Hello? Lily, are you free tonight?" There was a child's voice on the other side of the phone. It sounded like they were chasing and playing. The little girl's voice was soft and sweet. Yu Lily's heart softened and she nodded and said, "Yes, what's wrong? Let's have dinner together tonight. We haven't been together for a long time. I will take the children with me. They haven't seen you for a long time." "Tonight?" Yu Lily glanced at her digital screen and nodded. "Okay, where to?" "Let's go to the place we often go. I don't know any other places, okay?" The place we often go, it was Palace 1 under the O Group. Oming also often went there. Yu Lily was a bit hesitant. When she was about to discuss with Su Qianxi about changing places, there came the cry of the child, "Mom!" When Yu Lily heard his voice, it was as if a soft spot in her heart had been touched, and it immediately sank. Su Qianxi responded and said, "Then it's settled. Let's have dinner together at 7 p.m. Why?" Before Yu Lily spoke, Su Qianxi had already hung up the phone. "Forget it, let's go. It shouldn't be so coincidental, right?" Yu Lily ignored it and continued to paint. When it was almost 5 p.m., Yu Lily began to change clothes and put on makeup. It took about half an hour to get to Palace 1 by taxi. When Yu Lily arrived, it was exactly 18:53 in the evening. Palace number 1 was a combination of entertainment, dining, leisure, and so on. It was located in a key location and had gorgeous decorations. 1, 2, 3, 10. He leaned against the wall and counted. When he counted to 10, he straightened up, looked around and shouted, "I'm going to start looking." "Okay." Li Jianhua hid behind the curtains. Her small figure could be seen clearly. Seeing this scene, Li Xiqing could not help but laugh. However, he deliberately looked around and pretended to be distressed. "My little baby, where are you?" When she heard her father's words, Li Jianhua shrank back and the curtains were flattened. The little girl's sweet voice called out, "Daddy, you won't be able to find me. I'm hiding." Li Xiqing laughed out loud and said, "Is that so? Where are you hiding then?" "I won't tell you. You have to find me yourself," Li Jianhua shouted. Her voice was a little smug. Chapter 10:20. Li Jianhua didn't make a sound. She shrank back and shrank back. Li Xiqing swayed left and right, and suddenly the curtains were opened. Li Jianhua looked at Li Xiqing in horror. Her big eyes widened and she shouted, "Dad!" "Got you." Li Xiqing squatted down and held her in his arms. He rubbed her little head and said, "Dad will take you to wash your hands." Li Jianhua pouted in frustration and shouted, "Why did you find me again? Even Brother Mosen couldn't find me." Li Xiqing smiled. Li Mosen was smarter than any of them had imagined. With his IQ, how could he not find this little fool? He just gave in to her. However, even if Li Xiqing said it, this little girl would not believe it. He reached out and pinched her little nose and said, "Your brother Mosen has already washed his hands. You are the only one who is disobedient and playful. Do you still not keep your word?" Li Jianhua stuck out her little tongue and reached out to Li Xiqing. "Dad, hug." "Okay, hug." Li Xiqing picked up his daughter and took her to the bathroom to wash her hands. Oming looked at the interaction between the father and daughter, full of envy. Li Jianqian and Li Mosen sat side by side, holding a Rubik's Cube in their small hands. Daisa said, "Uncle, how do you get this red one? You see, yellow, blue and green are all ready. You just need to get this red to white." Oming put down the teacup, bowed his head and patiently explained, You can't just focus on one side. If there is a little disharmony, this is not a complete Rubik's Cube. Come on, you first make this like this, like this. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen were both people with a particularly strong learning ability. The two little guys opened their eyes, looked at the Rubik's Cube in Ming's hand, listened to his explanation and nodded. Su Qinxi received a call from Yu Lili. She was bored anyway, so she simply stood up and went outside to pick her up. When she saw Yu Lili, Su Qinxi's eyes flashed with amazement and she shouted, "Lili!" Yu Lili heard Su Qinxi shout, smiled and waved at Su Qinxi. Qianqian. Su Qinxi quickly approached and looked at Yu Lili's current appearance. Compared to the last time Su Qinxi saw her, Yu Lili was plumper this time. The flesh on her face had also grown back and she looked round and beautiful. Her skin was white and delicate, and her skin was tender and elastic. Today Yu Lili was wearing a red dress and a long black coat. It didn't look like a famous brand, but it was a very stylish combination. In more than 2 months Yu Lili's hair had been trimmed 2 or 3 times. Her short hair still reached her ears, making her look playful and capable. Her oval face was covered by her short black hair. Coupled with her exquisite makeup, she looked even more beautiful and alluring. Wow, Lili, you've become so beautiful. We haven't seen each other for so long. Su Qinxi went up and took her arm. Let's go. We were just waiting for you. Everyone liked to be complimented, especially by Su Qinxi. Yu Lili felt particularly happy. With a smile she walked in with Su Qinxi. However, when she entered the door and saw Ming, she paused. Ming seemed to have sensed her gaze and looked up. Chapter 1021. Ex-boyfriend seeing ex-girlfriend. Yu Lili felt inexplicably embarrassed at the moment. Was it a coincidence? Absolutely not. Yu Lili quickly looked away, looked at Su Qinxi, smiled and said, "Qianqian, is he here too?" Yes, of course he is. Because it was Ming who called her. However, Su Qinxi pretended to be stupid at the moment, intimately pulled Yu Lili in and said, "We are waiting for you. Is there anything in particular you want to eat?" No. Okay, then let's serve the dishes. Su Qinxi pulled her to sit down next to her and shouted, "Waiter, help us serve the dishes." Su Qinxi poured a cup of tea for Yu Lili and said, "How have you been recently?" Yu Lili took the tea, smiled and said casually, "Very good, my boyfriend is also very good to me, much happier than before." Su Qinxi was speechless for a moment, subconsciously glancing at Ming. She saw that Ming was just drinking tea and did not speak. Li Xiqing came over with his daughter, sat next to Su Qinxi and asked, "What do you want to eat?" "Chicken wings." "What else?" "Chicken legs." "What else?" "Crap." Li Jianhua shouted, looking at the empty table, pouted and said, "Dad, hungry. There will be food in a while. Drink some juice first." Li Xiqing poured a glass of juice for the little girl and handed it over. "Drink slowly." "Oh." Li Jianhua took it with both hands, holding the juice with her short, fleshy hands. Li Xiqing looked at her, his hand under the glass in case the little girl could not hold it firmly, he could catch it in time. Yu Lili saw the little girl's face, which looked very similar to Su Qinxi's, pink and tender, and her heart was about to melt. However, in her impression, Li Xiqing, who was cold and terrible, actually had such a soft side in front of his daughter. So envious. Yu Lili looked at the little girl and Li Xiqing looked down and took a sip of the tea. However, she did not look at Ming again. The atmosphere was awkward. Su Qinxi winked at him from time to time, but he did not seem to understand and remained indifferent. The dishes were quickly served, and the children ate with relish, not noticing the strange atmosphere between the adults. "I heard that you took an early vacation and rested for almost 20 days. Ming finally opened his mouth, but he didn't look at her. Instead, he lowered his head and ate slowly. It was obvious who he was talking to. "Yes," Yu Lili replied. "Traveling?" "Yes." "Where to?" "I don't know. We'll see." Yu Lili smiled and took a sip of tea. Suddenly, she picked up the red wine glass next to her and reached out to Ming. "Master O, congratulations. You're getting married tomorrow. I wish you a happy wedding in advance." Ming's eyes darkened. He picked up the glass of red wine and gently clinked it with Yu Lili's glass. Then Yu Lili laughed and drank all the red wine in the glass. "Cheers." Yu Lili stood up and said, "I still have things to do. I'll go first. I can have a good time after I finish my work. Thank you for today, Qianqian." Su Qinxi was embarrassed. She didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but she felt that Yu Lili's thank you was sarcastic. Blushing when she was about to speak, Yu Lili had already turned and left. Chapter 1022. The distance between Ming and Yu Lily was always maintained at a moderate distance. Yu Lily didn't look back, but she was clearly aware that he was following her. Deliberately quickening her pace, Yu Lily went out the door. It was a little windy outside. As soon as she went out, the wind blew in fiercely, making her subconsciously wrap up her clothes. Seeing her like this, Ming quickly walked forward. Yu Lily heard the subtle footsteps coming from behind, and she quickened her pace. Then, as if she had thought of something, Yu Lily suddenly stopped in her tracks and stood rooted to the ground. Ming hadn't expected her to suddenly stop. Caught off guard, he rushed forward and bumped into her. Yu Lily was hit so hard that she groaned and almost fell forward. Ming was quick to react. He reached out to grab her and held her firmly in his arms. Such a scene made people couldn't help but look at them. She could clearly feel the warmth of the strong arm that was wrapped around her waist. Yu Lily's heart was beating fast. She reached out, took his hand away, turned around and looked at Ming. The distance between the two was less than 20 centimeters. Ming didn't expect that Yu Lily would face him like this. He looked at her eyes in a daze and couldn't help but be attracted to her. Yu Lily looked up at him. Her eyes were deep and beautiful, as if they were shrouded in a layer of silver light. She looked calm and serious as she said, Ming, let's go to bed. Ming was very surprised and thought he had heard wrong. He asked incredulously, what did you say? Yu Lily looked at him and didn't avoid his eyes. She was calm, but she still firmly said, let's go get a room. Such a bold request was not only beyond Ming's expectation, but also Yu Lily began to doubt whether she was crazy. Seeing Ming's eyes, the impulse in Yu Lily's heart decreased bit by bit. Yu Lily looked down and smiled gently. When she was about to say something, she heard Ming's voice, yeah. A simple single word made Yu Lily's heart slightly hurt. Without warning, the pain made her breathless. But he smiled and said, then you drive the car. I'll go buy something. Ming frowned. After getting the car, he drove Yu Lily to the place she had told him to go. Stop. At the same time, Ming stopped the car. She opened the door and said, wait a minute. With that, she got out of the car and entered a pharmacy. After about 7 or 8 minutes, Yu Lily came out with a bag in her hand. There were 2 glasses of milk in it. Let's go. Yu Lily smiled and sat in the front passenger seat. Ming wasn't in a hurry to drive. He lit a cigarette and asked, are you serious? Yes. You can't now? She had done it with Shinjilia before, so she knew it was possible. That's why she sought him out? Ming laughed coldly. Shinjilia couldn't satisfy you, so you came to me, right? Yu Lily's hand holding the bag slightly tightened, and the bag made a rustling sound. However, Yu Lily suddenly turned her head and smiled like a flower. Why did you ask if you knew? Don't you want to? Ming's face suddenly darkened. He turned his head and looked at her like a raging storm, very gloomy. It seems that you really don't want to. Then I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. As she spoke, Yu Lily opened the car door and was about to get out. But she was stopped. Ming locked the door and coldly said, you need to F***CK. Chapter 1023. Ming took Yu Lily to a local 5-star hotel in Kingstown, registered his ID card and opened a room. As soon as Ming entered the room, he took off his coat. Yu Lily followed behind and closed the door. Ming took off his suit and said, do you want to take a shower first or should I? Or, together? However, Yu Lily did not respond. Ming was a little surprised and turned around, but he was suddenly hugged. Yu Lily looked up at him, breathed quickly, and her body was hot. Her face was as red as a peach. Looking at him, Yu Lily stood on her tiptoes, hugged his neck and kissed him on the lips. Yu Lily easily entangled him. She closed her eyes, and the heat in her body ignited the deepest and most hidden passion in her. Holding him tightly with both hands, Yu Lily couldn't help but whisper and shout, don't you want to start? At that moment, Yu Lily's face was flushed, and her whole body was attached to his. She was slightly panting and her breath smelled like orchids, which was seductive and sexy. Ming did not expect that she actually took the medicine herself. Didn't she always refuse this kind of medicine? However, seeing how impatient she was, he decided not to suppress it any longer. He took the initiative, picked her up and threw her on the bed. Yu Lily's body bounced and she groaned. Then she felt a hot body covering her. His fiery big hands peeled off her coat, and then he tore off her dress. Dense, hot kisses dotted her body. Yu Lily hugged him, moaned and unbuttoned his vest, shouting, "Oh Ming!" Oh Ming did not respond to her but fiercely and heavily sucked on her neck. The hot breath fell on her neck, and the burning feeling spread all over her body. Yu Lily hooked her legs and shouted, Mr. O, Mr. O, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you. O Ming breathed heavily and his big hand clamped her chin. He chuckled and said, What? Do you regret it? Hearing that, Yu Lily opened her eyes and looked at him. His clothes were slightly messy and his eyes were slightly narrowed, but he was very sober. His beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to be enshrouded in a layer of hazy silver, bright and resplendent. Yu Lily's eyes were blurred as she looked at him. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. Her face flushed, she smiled and said, I don't regret it. You would never regret it. When O Ming heard that, he opened the zipper on her back, revealing her smooth and fair shoulders, which were round and tender. He lowered his head and kissed her, but it was full of aggression. He held her in a domineering manner. He seemed to have completely let go of her. Under his aggressive attack, Yu Lily narrowed her eyes. No regrets, no regrets. She had no room for regret, she wanted him, she loved him. Yu Lily couldn't lie to herself. For so many days, no matter how well Shinjilia had treated her, her mind was still filled with O Ming's shadow. Even Yu Lily herself felt that she was so cheap, but she missed him, but he was about to get married. How could this relationship, which was not supported or acknowledged by others, be allowed to continue? She hugged him back and slightly raised her head. There was an unknown tears flowing down from the corner of her eyes. Yu Lily opened her mouth to gasp and shouted, O Ming, have you loved me? Chapter 1024. It was the first time Yu Lily had asked such a question. It was also the first time O Ming had heard it. It was strange and wonderful. It was as if he had met this person for the first time. Yu Lily would actually ask such a question. O Ming's eyes darkened. Looking at her flushed cheeks, he slightly raised his lips and was about to speak, but Yu Lily suddenly hugged his neck and sealed his lips. Before O Ming could say anything, he was hit by her hotness and disappeared without a trace. The king's sighs gently swayed with their movements, and Yu Lily's whole body was hot, and she twisted uncomfortably. O Ming panted heavily and whispered in her ear, Love. Yu Lily's body stiffened, her hands wrapped around his neck and she bit his shoulder. He said love. Not love but love. Is that true? But, the words that men say when they are driven by pleasure, can we believe them? After a rest, O Ming pulled away, hugged her and kissed her neck. Yu Lily slightly narrowed her eyes, gently pushed him away and said, I'm tired. Go take a shower. O Ming paused, looked at her slightly tired face and chuckled. He got up and went into the bathroom. Yu Lily opened her eyes, got up and took out the 2 bottles of milk from the pharmacy. She opened one of the bottles and put a white pill in it. She closed the lid, shook it a few times and then drank 2 mouthfuls of the other bottle. After O Ming came out of the shower, Yu Lily handed the milk to him, holding a half-empty bottle in her hand. O Ming happened to be a little thirsty, so he glanced at it, took the milk and drank 2 mouthfuls. Seeing this, Yu Lily's eyes darkened. She stepped into the bathroom and when she came out, O Ming was already asleep and the bottle of milk had been drunk. By the time Yu Lily got dressed, it was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. She gently kissed him on the lips and whispered, Goodbye, Mr. O. This sleeping pill was enough for him to sleep until noon the next day. And she was already in the sky. Looking at his face greedily, Yu Lily lay down, picked up her phone and took a photo. The last photo. This would be the last time they would see each other in this lifetime, right? Yu Lily's eyes were sore. She curled up beside him and gently hugged him. Her voice was choked and low like a mosquito. Goodbye. The sky was still dark when they boarded the plane. Everything was still in a hazy state, and the bustling big city was gradually getting farther and farther away. Yu Lily looked down at Kingstown, and her eyes gradually became empty. Yu Lily closed her eyes and leaned back in her seat, her mind blank. When O Ming woke up, it was past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. When he got up, there was no one around. O Ming felt a little dizzy. He patted his head and frowned. He felt like he was still dreaming. Everything around him was cold and there was no sign of Yu Lily. Not only was there no shadow, there wasn't even a trace of his existence. Could it be that he was dreaming? An erotic dream left no trace. The phone was vibrating and it was the special assistant, Su Cheng. Chapter 1025. When O Ming heard Su Cheng's words, he felt even more confused. He didn't know how to respond, so he just hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, O Ming found that there were dozens of missed calls. Shinmanting, his family, Su Cheng and all kinds of unknown calls. The wedding started at 2 o'clock and now it was 1 o'clock. If he went there now it was still not too late. The timing was really good. It could not only make Shin-Manting anxious, but it would not delay his wedding. It turned out that Lily was so thoughtful. I really didn't expect it. However, Ming lay in bed and didn't want to move. The phone continued to vibrate, but Ming ignored it and lay on his back with his eyes closed. The deal with Shinluo was achieved. Shin-Manting had never felt so desperate as today. Ming hadn't come yet. Countless calls were made but no one answered. The scene was in chaos, all because of Ming. However, what made Shin-Manting even more desperate was Shinluo, who was sitting not far away and looking at her with a faint smile. She was even more furious. Shin-Manting gritted her teeth and dialed Ming's cell phone number again and again. But the result was still the same. Shin-Manting's eyes became redder. She walked into the temporary bridal room in the hotel and sat down. After driving everyone out, Shin-Manting leaned on the sofa weakly. If Ming didn't come then Shinluo would never let her go. Absolutely impossible. She looked down and found it was already 2:13. It was a mess outside and the noise made Shin-Manting's head buzz. How could it be? Bastard. Shin-Manting's eyes were red and she threw the phone in her hand. The phone was deformed. After a few jumps, it finally fell to the ground, and the screen was broken into a spider web. Such a temper is really not suitable for a bride. A teasing voice came in and Shin-Manting's body stiffened. She turned her head and saw Shinluo, walking in slowly with his hands in his pockets. He looked like he was smiling and it seemed that his eyes were filled with pity. Shin-Manting saw him and suddenly stood up. She roared with red eyes, "Is it you, Shinluo? You are so despicable. What's wrong with me? I'm not the one who ran away from the marriage. But you should be glad that you haven't gotten a marriage certificate. Otherwise, you will have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. It will be too embarrassing." Shin-Manting breathed more quickly and she was furious. She stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, it was Shinluo's to her. Shinluo took the opportunity to pull her over. He placed her hand in front of his nose and sniffed it. He chuckled and said, "You want to hit me? That is treason." His casual words made Shin-Manting feel even more humiliated, and tears welled up in her eyes. She was so embarrassed and angry that she forcefully pulled her hand back and roared, "T big brother, you pervert." Ching would not treat his sister like Shin. Ming to Yang to up and said, "Shin was that Shin. To Shin was very felt. Ching was not to Yang. To Ming. That to two of to Shin to Ming too." Chapter 10:26. Shin-Manting suddenly felt a sense of crisis in her heart. She pushed him hard but he didn't move at all. Shinluo looked at Shin-Manting in front of him and whispered, "Don't be afraid. Ming is not with you. I will give you happiness just like last time." Shin-Manting's eyes widened in horror. She pushed him away and shouted, "No." The sound of footsteps coming and going could be heard from outside, as well as the noise of the crowd. The gentle smile on Shinluo's face became more and more serious. He gently released her and said, "You can't know until you try." After that, he took 2 steps back and the distance between them was a little bit. Then the door was opened. Shin-Manting didn't notice that someone was approaching. At this moment, the door was suddenly opened, and her heart skipped a beat. Then, seeing Shinluo's calm appearance, she knew that he must have noticed it and let her go. Yu saw Shinluo and Shin-Manting's appearance inside and felt inexplicably strange. However, Shinluo's expression didn't seem to be different. Is it an illusion? Yu was confused but she didn't think much about it. She said, "Grandma asked you to go out." "Got it. We'll be there soon." Shinluo smiled and looked at Yu. His eyes were as usual and there was nothing wrong with them. However, Shin-Manting's heart was secretly guilty. If he wasn't a pervert, why would he only react to you, my sister? So what about Yu? If he is only interested in Shin-Manting, then Yu as his real wife is. The more Shin-Manting thought about it, the more she felt that she was guilty. She looked at Yu and Yu looked at her at the same time. She smiled at Shin-Manting and said, "Aunt, let's go together." Shin-Manting felt more and more guilty when she was called aunt. She nodded and didn't dare to look at her. She said, "Okay." Yu took Shin-Manting's arm and subconsciously glanced at Shinluo. Shinluo, on the other hand, looked calm and unperturbed. He looked no different from usual. Is it an illusion? Su Cheng's phone was full of calls, but he still couldn't find out where Ming was. In the face of everyone's questions and expectations, Su Qing could only remain silent and escape. However, just as he found a quiet place to rest, he received a WeChat message on his phone. It was Ming. Find out where Lily went. Su Qing saw this message and replied without thinking. Japan, their editor-in-chief told me. Ming did not reply. Looking at the message sent by Su Qing, he was lost in thought. The most famous romantic city in the world was covered in white snow. Blonde men and women walked to and fro, wearing thick down jackets and hats that covered their bodies tightly. Lily wrapped herself in the thick down, and even her breath was filled with white vapor, which made her shiver. Looking at the snowflakes falling from the sky, Lily felt that the trip was not in vain. So beautiful. Picking up the phone, Lily took pictures left and right. Looking at her red cheeks in the photo, Lily smiled and quickly entered the nearby shopping mall. Chapter 10:27. After eating, Lily returned to the hotel. After a long flight, Lily felt a little tired. But after taking a shower and lying down, she couldn't fall asleep. Her mind was full of messy thoughts, and even Lily didn't know what she was thinking. She simply got up, took out the digital screen, plugged it in, and began to draw. The phone was not turned on, and Lily didn't bring a computer with her. She didn't dare to go online, turn on the computer, or see any news about Ming. It was already dark outside. At this time, Ming should have just woken up? Or is he still in bed with Enchanting? Lily's hand holding the pen paused, but she couldn't calm down. What to draw? Putting down the pen, Lily put on her clothes again and deliberately wrapped herself up. A red scarf and a red hat covered her face. After making sure she wouldn't get cold, she walked out of the hotel. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the nightlife in Paris had just begun. Lily walked around and stopped on a path. There were many footprints on the thick snow, and on the bare trees, ice and snow piled up. It was much more spectacular than when it snowed in the capital. Unfortunately, it didn't snow in Kingstown. It seemed that she hadn't seen the snow with Ming. What a pity. Master I checked. I didn't see Lily on the flight to Japan. Su Cheng's voice was a little guilty and he asked, what should we do now? Ming's face became more and more serious. Find out if she is in the country. Yes. Su Cheng responded and Ming quickly hung up. After hanging up, Ming still called his most reliable brother Luo Zhan. Nothing was faster than directly hacking the system to find out. After going through the process, maybe Lily had gone far? After calling Luo Zhan, he was silent for a moment and said, Brother, do you want to hurt me? That is the national security system. If I hack in, what if I get caught? I'll protect you. No, you'd better go through the process. Last time I helped Lao Air check the police and I was almost caught. This time you directly asked me to hack the national system. I don't have that much courage. With your skills there is no problem. Luo Zhan, please. It's not that I'm helping you, it's too risky. You seem to like the mall in the south of the city, right? For you. Luo Zhan, Ming's department store in the south of the city was the most profitable, and he actually gave it to him? Luo Zhan almost choked on his saliva and asked incredulously, what did you say? I said help me investigate. I'll give you the department store in the south of the city. Luo Zhan almost knelt, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. I don't want the mall, but you can give me some shares to play with. Okay. Ming agreed without hesitation. Hurry up. Luo Zhan was puzzled and asked, is it really urgent? Hurry. All right, wait for me. After Luo Zhan hung up the phone, he was clearly aware of the contemptuous eyes coming from the side. Luo Ran was eating when he saw him hang up the phone. He said leisurely, if I had known that being a hacker was so lucrative, I wouldn't have majored in psychology. It would have been much better to focus on technical skills. It's too late. Luo Zhan put down the phone and stopped eating. He said, remember to wash the dishes later. I have to go. Chapter 10:28. While Luo Zhan was investigating, Ming didn't relax. He went to the house where Lily was living and found Yi Qianqian. When Yi Qianqian saw him, she recognized him at a glance. She crossed her arms and teased, hey, isn't this Mr. O who's running away from his wedding? What are you doing here? Running away from your wedding and coming to our house? His tone was a little bitter and impolite. Ming pursed his lips and looked at her. Do you know where Lily went? I don't know, Yi Qianqian replied and prepared to close the door. However, Ming reached out and blocked the door. He asked again, where did she go? Who knows? Maybe it's Korea. She looked at Ming and smiled. Isn't it a little late for you to come looking for me now? I don't even know where Lily is. Didn't you go to Japan? Ming looked at her and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Seeing this, Ming was even more certain in his heart. You Lily went to Japan. Yi Chanshan averted her gaze and sneered, it's none of your business. With that he slammed the door shut. He quickly turned around and asked Su Ching to book the fastest ticket to Japan. He went back to get his passport and rushed to the airport without even unpacking his luggage. He boarded the plane. It took more than 5 hours to fly from Kingstown to Japan. Japan was 1 hour faster than China. It was noon in Kingstown, but by the time they arrived in Japan, it was already evening. As soon as he got off the plane and turned on his phone, he received a message from Luo Zhan as well as countless missed calls. He clicked on the text message sent by Luo Zhan and saw the place at first glance, Paris. Yu Lily slept until dawn. As soon as she got out of bed, she turned on her phone. After turning it on, he noticed that there were a lot of missed calls. A few dozen belonged to Ming, a dozen belonged to Yi Chanshan, and 30 to 40 belonged to Shinjilia. The rest were Su Cheng, Su Chenxi, and Editor-in-Chief Zhou. Yu Lily was inexplicably surprised. There were so many people looking for her. What? Other than phone calls, there were also many short messages. Chanshan, where are you? I've been looking for you for a long time. Chanshan, call me when you see it. Shinjilia, she actually went to Japan without telling me. That's too much. Shinjilia, Chanshan has told me everything. Where are you in Japan? I'll find you. Shinjilia, in any case I'm still your boyfriend. How dare you act first and report later? You deserve a beating. I'll teach you a lesson when I find you. Shinjilia, big sis, why haven't you switched on your phone yet? Don't you know that turning off your phone isn't a good habit? Shinjilia, I think I know where you are. Wait for me. Don't go away. Chief Editor Zhou, is Japan fun? Chief Editor Zhou, don't forget to submit the manuscript. Special Assistant Su, miss you, where are you? Special Assistant Su, young Master O is very worried about you. Can you give me a message as soon as possible? Yi Chanshan, Lily, what should we do? It seems that Ming knows you went to Japan. Yi Chanshan, but it should be fine. Japan is huge. It's not like we'll bump into each other, right? Yu Lily read through them one by one and her lips curled up. He replied to Yi Chanshan, I'm not in Japan. I'm in France. Chapter 1029. Yi Chanshan, that guy seems to know that I know you are in Japan. Do you think he has already gone to Japan? Ahahaha. Yu Lily smiled and was about to reply, but when her finger just touched the screen, she suddenly received a call. As soon as the phone came out, the answer button was immediately pressed. Yu Lily was a little confused. Looking at the call interface, she suddenly felt a little confused. Shinjulia's voice came through the phone. Yu Lily had no choice but to pick up the phone. Shinjulia's voice came through the phone and he shouted, Lily, where are you? Isn't your sister married? How do you know that I am not in China? Yu Lily sat on the bed and felt a little helpless. Don't say it. I don't dare to stay at home now. Where are you? France? Where is France? I will find you. No need. I will just play here for a few days. It doesn't matter. Just tell me the address and I will find you. Shinjulia did not hear Yu Lily's reluctance at all. It just happens that I haven't taken a vacation for a whole year. It's a good time to play. No need. You find a place to play by yourself. That's all. Goodbye. Yu Lily hung up the phone and then breathed a sigh of relief. Shinjulia called again and Yu Lily directly hung up. But soon she received another call. Ming. She hung up the phone and put his number on the blacklist. Then she went to wash up. After going downstairs to eat, Yu Lily went out the door. It was very cold that day, very cold. There were pedestrians talking and laughing with each other. Everyone's mouth was emitting white steam, but everyone looked so happy. Yu Lily unconsciously walked into a ski resort and was pulled in by an auntie who sent a flyer. After paying, Yu Lily put on ski boots and started to ski on her own. However, Yu Lily did not dare to move too much. She saw many people talking and laughing while skiing, and her eyes were full of envy. Perhaps it was because she was alone and pitiful, or because her black eyes and yellow skin were special. A woman who looked to be in her early 30s came to Yu Lily. She was very beautiful and spoke French that Yu Lily did not understand. However, Yu Lily finally realized that she wanted to teach her how to skate. Yu Lily nodded happily and began to learn with her. Em was a very cheerful girl. She came here with her boyfriend. Although Yu Lily couldn't understand what she was saying, neither could she understand what Yu Lily was saying. Using the translation software, they chatted happily. The day passed quickly. In the afternoon, Yu Lily learned that her name was Em. For lunch, Em treated her to local delicacies. For dinner, of course, Yu Lily had to return the favor. Yu Lily took her to the hotel where she was staying for dinner. She looked at the way they were leaning on each other and felt a little envious. Soon, Em went back with her boyfriend. They blew each other a kiss but didn't leave any contact information. When Yu Lily returned to the hotel, she needed to swipe her card to enter the elevator. As soon as she walked up the steps, Yu Lily lowered her head and fumbled for the key card. However, before he could pass through the lobby, he saw a man standing not far away from him. He was wearing a dark suit with a black coat and a dark gray scarf around his neck. However, it still looked a little thin in such weather. Yu Lily was shocked to see the man. Chapter 1030. Seeing the man's face, Yu Lily's heartbeat sped up involuntarily. Yu Lily turned around and walked out quickly. Unfortunately, the man had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing that Yu Lily wanted to run away again, a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes suddenly narrowed. He quickly stepped forward and reached out to hold Yu Lily's hand. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She struggled hard, but she quickly remembered something. She turned her head and smiled like a flower, like an old friend she hadn't seen for a long time. What a coincidence. You're here too? Oming saw her smile and felt it was even more dazzling. His eyes darkened and he pulled her back and said, "Unfortunately, I am here for you." Hearing that, the smile on Yu Lily's face could no longer be pretended. Yu Lily pulled her arm hard and frowned. She was very resistant to pulling her arm back, but Oming still held it tightly and didn't let go. Yu Lily was very angry. She looked at him and sneered, "What are you doing? Aren't you married? Are you pestering your old lover now?" Oming looked at her, grabbed her and slowly said, "No one has ever dared to run away after sleeping with me. Yu Lily, you are good." "Ah, who is sleeping with who? You are obviously having a better time than me." Yu Lily roared. "Let go. If you don't let go, I will scream. Go ahead and scream. Let's see who can understand what you are saying." Oming's lips curled up into a bad smile. "You can really run away. You lied to me to go to Japan. Do you know how many flights I had to take to get here?" Yu Lily heard that and felt a chill in her heart. This guy really came here to find me. But how did he know I was here? Yu Lily saw the evil smile on his face and felt inexplicably a little flustered. She desperately stepped back and struggled to break away from his hand. She shouted, "It's none of my business. You can go wherever you want. You are so old and your wife doesn't care about you? Since you can't control yourself, Shenmanting is not to be trifled with." "I'm not married." Oming pulled her back and said in a low voice, "I'm thinking about how to punish you." "Not married?" Yu Lily was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. "Is that true? Your wedding was so grand. How could there be no marriage?" "I said that I wouldn't marry her. We didn't get our marriage certificate and we didn't have a wedding." Oming looked at her with a serious expression. As for Yu Lily, she looked at him for a while and sneered, "So what? Do you think that I will be with you when you are not married? I have a boyfriend now. Who do you think you are?" Oming's face finally darkened. His big hand grabbed her wrist, and his face was indescribably gloomy. Seeing this, the sarcasm in Yu Lily's eyes deepened and she sneered, "What's the point of following you? Isn't it just a mistress? If I'm with Shinjilia, at least I'm his girlfriend, the official kind. Please let go, Mr. O." Yu Lily. Oming finally couldn't take it anymore. The two of them were in the lobby of the hotel. Chapter 1031. The crowd was looking at them and Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed. She lowered her head and said, "You'd better let go. If you don't, I'll scream." "Enough." Oming lowered his voice as if he was dealing with an ignorant child. "Which room do you live in? Does that mean I have to live in the same room with her?" "Bah." Yu Lily's face changed and she turned her head and shouted, "Savim, I don't know what." Oming's face was even more ugly and he covered her mouth. Yu Lily struggled hard, her hands flailing, and she looked unwilling. Facing the eyes around him, Oming's face was very interesting. He smiled and said in fluent French, "She is my girlfriend. It's just a quarrel. It's okay." Yu Lily heard the French and looked at him with wide eyes. This guy actually knew how to speak French. Oh Ming looked at her, hugged her hard, dragged her into the elevator and said, "Let's go up first." However, Yu Lily's struggle was getting farther and farther away, and soon it attracted the attention of the security guard. The security guard ran up with a stick in his hand and shouted, "Hey, hey!" Oh Ming stopped and looked at the eyes around him helplessly. The security guard went forward and hit Oh Ming's hand with the stick. It was not light or heavy, but it still hurt a little. After releasing his hand, Yu Lily immediately ran away. Her face was red because of his hand, and she hid behind the security guard. Oh Ming raised his hands and said helplessly, "She is my girlfriend and we quarreled." Then he reached into the inside pocket of his coat and took out a business card. "This is my business card. I am a friend of your hotel owner." The security guard took the business card and it was all in English. He didn't understand it, so the security guard looked at her suspiciously, pulled him and said, "Come here." Yu Lily saw Oh Ming being pulled to the front desk and she quietly walked toward the elevator. Oh Ming turned his head and said something to the security guard. The security guard turned to look at Yu Lily, waved at her, and said something that Yu Lily couldn't understand at all. Yu Lily refused, and after swiping the elevator she was pulled by the security guard and walked toward Oh Ming. When Oh Ming saw the security guard tugging at her down jacket, his face darkened. He said, "Don't pull me. In Huaxia this is called sexual harassment." When the security guard heard that, he immediately let go. Oh Ming registered his information at the front desk and booked a room. "Sir, may I know your phone number first?" Oh Ming turned his head and told her the number, but when he turned his head, he found that Yu Lily had already wandered to the door. Seeing her run away, Oh Ming narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Yu Lily, come back." But when Yu Lily heard that, her body stiffened and she ran outside. Oh Ming had a headache and chased after her. It was a world of ice and snow outside and everything was covered in pure white. The ice on the ground was very slippery, and Yu Lily almost fell several times. But when she turned her head and saw Oh Ming chasing after her, she didn't dare to stop. What was he trying to do? Why did she run? I don't know. But she did not want to see him, did not want to be with him. Although she was secretly happy that he said he was not married, she still needed to verify whether he was married or not. Looking back and seeing Oh Ming chasing after her, Yu Lily walked faster, but her foot was slippery and she fell on the ice. Oh Ming followed and saw that she was wet, so he smiled helplessly. Chapter 1032. He walked quickly toward her. Yu Lily saw his footsteps coming and quickly wanted to get up. Just as she got up, her feet slipped again and she fell down again. Oh Ming went forward and lifted her up under her armpits. Seeing her dress like a dumpling, he said with a smile, "Fortunately, you are wearing thick clothes or you will hurt." Oh Ming patted the snow on her body and looked at her helplessly. "It's cold outside. Let's go back to the hotel and talk." He looked like he was coaxing a child. "What the hell?" Yu Lily's face became serious. She turned around and said, "I have nothing to say to you. You can go. I came to find you and I will take you with me." "To find me?" Yu Lily's heart fluttered. She turned her head and sneered, "Why do you want to find me? I'm not your wife." But after saying that, Yu Lily felt a strong sense of jealousy. What the hell? She turned her head and saw Oh Ming with a faint smile on his face. Yu Lily wanted to bite her tongue, but soon she put on a straight face and said, "Sure enough, Chan is right. You are a scumbag. On the one hand, you don't let go of your old mistress, and on the other hand, you are reluctant to give up the Shen family." Bah. Oh Ming was even more helpless. He frowned and reached out to pinch her nose. He said, I said I am not married. How many times do I have to say it to make you understand?" Yu Lily slapped his hand away irritably and said angrily, "Hey, I don't believe it. If you want to break off the engagement, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? Go back and talk slowly. I'm so cold." Oh Ming hugged his arms and looked like he was freezing. He said, "I haven't eaten yet. I have been waiting for you all afternoon. Take me to eat something." "Go away. Go by yourself. It's none of my business." Yu Lily looked at him and shook his hand off. "I have a boyfriend now. He is coming. If he sees us, it will be bad." Oh Ming's heart sank again. What little patience he had had was almost worn out. His face was not very good. He said, "Break up with him and be with me. I will marry you." It was a domineering order, but the last 3 words made Yu Lily's body stiffen again. In this kind of situation, saying those 3 words was like giving alms to her. Yu Lily turned around and glared at Oh Ming. She pushed him away and turned to walk in the other direction of the hotel. The road was very slippery and one had to be careful when walking. Otherwise one could fall at any time. Being pushed, Ming almost slipped, but he quickly steadied himself. However, Yu Lily had already run more than 10 meters away. Sigh. Ming felt a headache coming on. When this woman became stubborn, she was like a crab. You stop. But Yu Lily didn't listen. She turned her head and shouted, F***CKU? Who wants you to marry me? UB***Ts, I don't want you. Yu Lily, stop. Ming was so cold that he was shivering. He chased after her with cold breath. I have a secret to tell you. Really, wait for me. Yu Lily didn't listen at all. She just went into a coffee shop. Ming chased after her. The coffee shop was so warm that he sighed. When he looked for Yu Lily again, she was gone. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.